Hello, this is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and there's rum in here because none of my internet is working. I don't know what's going wrong. Thank you for staying around. Hold on a second. I'm not plugged in because the whole internet went down, and I'm just hoping you can see me. I'm not. Am I pixelated as crap? Because I can't even plug in. Am I pixelated going like, or do I look normal? Can you tell me if I look like usual? No pixel. Okay, I'm just going to hold my breath because I'm plugged in and for some reason it is not registering. So yet another technical difficulty when I had thought I'd fixed everything since last time. Okay, so anyway, thank you for hanging in here with me. That's fun. I called StreamYard after the last problem, and they told me to reset the router and to do this go into this incognito thing. I did that, and then all went to hell. So it might go crappy during the show because I'm now on Wi-Fi and not plugged in. But I'm hoping not, because this is really a really important show. So I'm going to be talking about Ellen Greenberg. Benny has been onto me to do this one, and he sent me these great links, and I'm going to tell you about the great links because he has good taste. So I'm going to talk about Ellen Greenberg, and I want to point out that when I'm going to do this, I'm going to start with the I'm going to explain who Ellen Greenberg is in case you have no clue, but I'm going to talk about how the determination was originally homicide and then was quickly turned to suicide, which really ticked off the family, and they've been fighting to get it turned to homicide. And then it was, and now it's not. And they just had recently in Pennsylvania, they looked at it again and they ruled it suicide one more time. So everybody's very upset, which is why everybody wants me to do this thing about Ellen Greenberg. So here I am, and I'm going to do it right now. Okay, I tell you, little gremlins in my house apparently. All right, so before I start, I do want to explain the new issue, which some people are not happy about, but I really need to do it. This is the last. All my videos are public. Everybody can see every one of my videos, whether they're my case ones, the live ones, the hangouts, and in the future the call-ins. They'll all be public. So even if you never give a penny to me and don't even subscribe, you can see everything. But because during the lives we have a problem with bots and we have a problem with trolls, and especially my most disliked thing, agenda people. Like, for example, in this case, somebody might think that Ellen was murdered. Somebody might think it was suicide. And they come in to talk about their points. They don't care about me. I'm just a conduit to the chat room. They ignore me completely, and they just go crazy in the chat room, and they take over and become obnoxious. And so that's not what I want for this channel. This is an educational channel, not a take a position channel or solve a crime channel. This is an educational channel. So I want my chat room to be full of people who, first of all, like what I have to teach and are responsible and intelligent and, people that I want to hang out with myself. So in order to stop all the nonsense in the chat rooms, I'm turning the chat room, the live part, to patrons only. So what you have to do if you want to join the live part is you go over to the link's right below. You join Patreon. There are 5 levels, but on the 3rd level it's $5 a month. You get 6 lives for that. You support my channel, which is needed, and then you can come to the 6 lives during the month and participate in the chat room. So, and then you can of course do the other tiers as well. There are 5 tiers, but for just $5 a month you can participate in the live part. And I apologize to anybody who thinks that's mean. You can still see every one of my videos, and I will try to respond to your comments even if you're not part of the live. I always look at the comments when they come in. So I just want to mention that, so please do join Patreon. It really does support my channel because advertising doesn't really do a lot because I get demonetized a lot. And if you can't do anything else, just subscribe, like, share, and you don't have to pay a penny, or you can buy a book, any way you can help the channel would be appreciated. Okay, that's what I wanted to let you know, though. So if you come here, this is the last public live. So next week, if you're a part of Patreon, the level tier 3 or 4 or 5, $5 and up, you will get a link, and the link will just send you right here, and you just click in just like it's a normal show. And after the show is over, I will go make it public immediately, but I will stick around for about 30 minutes. So if you didn't get your question answered during the show, or you want to say something, since you're the Patreon people, you'll be able to, you'll have seen the whole show. You can comment right below and I'll comment back. So kind of like the first people that get to comment. But hey, everybody, if you can't join Patreon or just don't have the bucks, I will still try to answer your comments below, and you can still see the show. So that's that. Let's get on to the case. All right. Now, let me be sure you can still all see me. Oh my goodness, Sailor. Oh, hi, Sailor. I want to say hello to Sailor. Sailor Moon, good morning, afternoon, everyone. Almost missed the show, but I guess it started later. Yes, because everything went wrong, Sailor. So maybe it was just for you, because I love you. I just want to point out to everyone, I'm real impressed with Sailor's ability to profile. I've often said that, profiling is a matter of learning. It's a matter of logic and training and just learning. It's not any kind of psychic thing. It's not something only FBI profilers can do. And every once in a while I meet somebody I'm really impressed with their profiling skills, and Sailor is one of them. And Sailor can tell you who she is if she wants to. Okay. What I'm going to say, Lisa, yes, I'm going to try after I do the lives to just stay around, so that if I missed you during the live and you're like, oh, you didn't answer my question. Okay, I'm going to stay around so you can comment below, and I will answer your comments. And you'll be the first probably to comment, because you'll be the first to have been involved in the show. So yes, but I'll try to answer everybody's comments if I can, but you're kind of first in line if you're part of Patreon. So, and it's not like I'm trying to keep people away. Every one of my videos is available to everyone. If you never want to pay me a penny, you can still see it. One of my important points here is I want my videos available to everybody. I want, especially when I do the profiling school, I want every detective, every criminal justice student, everybody who just wants to learn, to be able to come here and get some kind of education and learn something. So nobody is blocked out. It's just for the chat room, because I would just want to keep it from being full of haters and trolls and bots and that kind of stuff, which definitely goes on. So and this is wonderful. Thank you, Doreen. You joined earlier. Yay. Okay. I appreciate that. Okay, so let me get on with the show. All right. Now, this is a, hold on a second, let me figure where I'm at. Okay, first I want to just let me read about the case, which is going to take me 1 second, from Wikipedia. Thank God for Wikipedia. So this is what happened for anyone who has no clue who this beautiful young lady Ellen Greenberg was, and this is her fiancé, Sam Goldberg. Let me tell you the basics of the story. So on January 26th in 2011, a blizzard hit Philadelphia, prompting Ellen Greenberg to leave work and return to her apartment, where she lived with her fiancé, Sam Goldberg. And he is a television producer for NBC and for golf.com. At approximately 6:40 p.m. that evening, Ellen was pronounced dead as a result of 20 stab wounds, including 10 to Ellen's back and neck. There were also 11 bruises in various stages of resolution on Ellen's right arm, abdomen, and right leg. However, despite there being no suicide note, the crime scene was treated as a suicide. Following the autopsy, the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office initially ruled the case as a homicide. However, the next day, the Philadelphia Police Department backtracked and stated that the death of Ellen Greenberg has not been ruled a homicide. Homicide investigators are considering the manner of death as suspicious at this time. The case was then reversed and officially ruled as a suicide in February 2011. Lord God. So, okay. Now the family got kind of really upset about this, and they eventually got in Cyril Wecht, He's the forensic pathologist, very famous guy, and also Henry Lee, another very famous forensic scientist. They both did their analysis, and they said it seemed to them that it was more likely homicide. And one of the reasons I really want to do this show is because although I appreciate that they came to a conclusion that they believed was, based on the evidence, they did not explain how they came to that conclusion. And that bugs me because, one of the reasons families don't understand things, or we don't understand things, is no one actually explains things. And, even if you're wrong on something and somebody comes in and points that out, it's good because then we can talk about the explanations instead of having no clue. So that's problematic to me. So this is what I want to do, is to explain all the issues. So have some patience. I'm going to start with the suicide concept. Then I'm going to go to the homicide. And I have a lot of photos. And I even have, where did it go? Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. There it is. Hold on. I've even got this knife, which I worked on. Say, I put the, can you see it from there? I put the how deep every one of the cuts were, the depth of the stab wounds, and I spent a lot of time stabbing myself. So this is the knife I'm going to use during the show to explain that more clearly. All right, so be a little patient in case I can't find the stupid pictures because I put so many up. And me, I'm always so well prepared. All right, so let's go to what the police said, okay? What they encountered when they first started with this case. And I'm gonna put up, first of all, if I can find this. Here we are. Oh, look. All right. So this is from the police report, and I'm going to, let me read what it says. The decedent's fiancé, that's Samuel Goldberg, he reportedly left the decedent, now let me read correctly. The decedent at the apartment around 15:45, so that would be, 3:45? Yeah, to go to the gym. He returned around 17:15, which would be 5:15, to 17:30, which would be 5:30, okay, and was unable to get into the apartment. He opened the door with his keys, but the door was secure from the inside. He proceeded to try and contact the decedent via text messages, telephone calls, and emails for approximately an hour. And this is going to be an interesting point, and I'm going to make later on. Before he forced entry into the apartment. An apartment security man was reportedly present during the entry, and that is questionable. He immediately discovered her, that's him, not the security man who doesn't appear to have actually been around, and called 911 about 18:33, which is 6:33 p.m. He was briefly instructed to start CPR until he noticed a knife in her chest, and then was instructed to stop. And anyway, they responded and pronounced death at 18:40, which is 6:40 p.m. All right. Now, let's take a look at the body in the vicinity, and then we're going to go on. The location of death is in the kitchen of the decedent's apartment, located at the Venice Loft Apartments, blah, blah, blah. Okay, she shared that with Goldberg. It was well kept and clean. Better than my house. Okay, the inside lock to the front door. This is important. A common latch, solid bar door guard, kind of like at hotels, is broken with the screws on the door loose, obviously forced in when in a locked position. Again, here's something I'm going to talk about later, the quote, obviously forced in. I'm always concerned about a word called obviously. How obvious was it? And who did any crime scene reconstructions to prove it was obvious? All right. And that's what exactly happened. Throughout the entire apartment, there's no evidence of a struggle. Furniture and items appear in place. Nothing's missing or disturbed, so that takes away, robbery. Numerous values present, again, not robbery. And then we go on, and it says the decedent is a teacher. There is no note found or anything indicative of suicide on the computers, which is interesting because later on they said there was something indicative of suicide on the computers in her searches. So I don't understand that, but perhaps they didn't look that far back. Anyway, let's see. The only way to exit the apartment with the front doorway locked is through a rear slider leading to a patio. The patio is 6 stories high, and it's a really narrow patio, and so there's just really no way anybody's going to crawl up there. There is snow present with no tracks or footprints, completely undisturbed. Okay, so, and then this incident occurred during a winter snowstorm. All right, so right here, it's a winter snowstorm. Nobody came in from the outside, so we are eliminating, and this is realistically eliminating, stranger homicide of any sort. Didn't happen. So then you're down to these 2 people. Either she killed herself or he killed her. That's it. She killed herself, he killed her. That's it. So there's 2 people and only 2 people to look at. So now, what happened in that house? All right, so let me pull up. Okay, hold on a second. Let me pull it up. Okay. So where did this all happen? Let me just show you where it all happened, because this is important. Hold on a second. I'm having a hard time seeing what I'm looking at here, because, okay. No, I had here. Okay, I just want to point this one out. Okay, so this is where it happened. It happened in the kitchen, right here, okay? And here you see some knives, and there were some chopped up things and some knives in the sink. So clearly the knife came from here. And so whoever, let me do my grammar right. Whoever committed the crime, either against herself or against her, took a knife from this, knife block. Now, what's interesting about the knife block is it's knocked over, which shows, I'm going to point out a couple things right here. It either shows this wasn't a premeditated suicide. What is a premeditated suicide? Okay, I want to stop and talk about why they thought it could be a suicide. Let me go to this. All right. This was something Ellen texted her mom. Ellen was having some I would say anxiety. That's what she claimed, anxiety. She started going to a therapist, a psychiatrist, and she said the psychiatrist only had seen her twice and already had her on meds. And I'm going to disagree with that, but okay. Because the psychiatrist said she wasn't suicidal, and in my opinion, if you're not suicidal, you shouldn't be put on a whole bunch of meds. But okay, that's my personal opinion. Let's go and see what she said after she went to the psychiatrist. She said, "I'm starting the medication. I know you don't understand, but I can't keep living with feeling this way." And I think this is a very important statement here. I'm going to come back to that later. I can't keep living feeling this way. What way was she feeling? Just anxious, or was it more than just anxious? 9 days later, Ellen texted her, "Klonopin helped, thank God." "So happy for you," her mom wrote back. "Me too, oh my God." Okay, so she supposedly is feeling better taking this Klonopin. Why is she feeling better? I will explain that in a second. The day before Ellen's death, Sandra texted her, "You need to see a professional." Ellen replied, "Okay, I'm trying, just scared a bit for everything." Okay, now, one of the reasons antidepressants sometimes work is because, and this is just my opinion, so you can attack me for this later, but I think it's very important, and I've had this viewpoint for a long time, and I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not a psychiatrist, and I'm not a doctor, so you can punch me in the face. But this is what I believe. When you are depressed, it is not a chemical in your brain. You're depressed because something about your life sucks. All right? So the problem with giving people antidepressants is that they do raise their level of feeling good. So they're feeling good about their crappy life. But it doesn't mean they're addressing the issue. Because anytime you get high, which is essentially antidepressants, I mean, they're basically, speed, man. I will admit I took speed once when I wanted to be a model many years ago when I was in Hollywood. And I took that speed. I cleaned my house, which I never normally do. I felt great. I loved everyone. I could do things a mile a minute. I felt wonderful. And as a matter of fact, I felt so wonderful, I said to myself, I better not do this stuff anymore. I was just trying to lose weight. But when people get depressed and take speed, they feel better. It's not because it's making them normal. It's because it's making them abnormal up to a level which they shouldn't be at. In other words, if you're happy now with your crappy life, something's wrong with that. It's able to blur you over. So she had issues. And the question is, I don't know what's up with the psychiatrist, but okay. She supposedly only talked to a psychiatrist about that she was overwhelmed at school or like frustrated at school. Well, she was a school teacher. I mean, I know that there's issues in schools these days that make life difficult, but she was also about to get married, and she supposedly loved this dude. She'd been with him 3 years. She was going to get married to him. Oh my God, happy, 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 right? But, and I know, people overplan these stupid weddings. My wedding dress cost $75 and we got married at my parents' condo. It wasn't that overwhelming or expensive. But a lot of people plan the biggie, they want the big, huge, fancy wedding. I understand it's a lot of pressure. But teaching and planning to get married, is it so much pressure that you need to go in and get drugs? Or is there something underlying this? And one of the things that happened right before she got murdered, did I say that? Sorry. Before she, I did not mean to say that. She could have been murdered. I screwed up this show. Okay. Before she died, okay, is that she had told her mother she couldn't take, wanted to come home. And this house, she lived there with her fiancé, her love, who she's going to marry. Who just all of a sudden wants to leave their fiancé and their home to go home to mommy, unless something's seriously wrong in the home? So my concern is that she was going to the therapist because she was stressed, but I don't think she was just stressed about work and all that. I think she was stressed about her relationship and what to do about it. Something was going wrong. Okay, so now let's go back to the suicide issue. She supposedly had looked up on the computer ways to commit suicide. She might have painless suicide, whatever. There's a lot of discussion whether that was even valid. So I'm not going to go there. Let's just push that away. But I want you to look at this. This thing is knocked over. Now, if you plan a suicide, you're not in a frenzy. You have made your decision. Now, she didn't write a suicide note. Some people don't. But it's usually a methodical decision. I'm going to kill myself. And so you get your knife and you kill yourself. Okay. In this case, this thing is knocked over. So she was already, the fiancé was in the apartment with her, and then he said, okay, hon, I'm going to go to the gym. Okay, that's what he supposedly said. Okay, hon, I'm going to go to the gym. He leaves to go to the gym. She locks the door behind him, which also I think is kind of interesting. It's the middle of the day. She's on the 6th floor. Her fiancé is just going down to the gym downstairs and coming back. Do you always go lock your door like that? It's already locked. Do you need to put the bolt thing over it? That's kind of weird, that you would do that. So either that never happened, or she wanted to kill herself and she was completely going into a rage. Maybe he pissed her off and she says, oh my God, my life's over. She went through the thing shut, came back, grabbed the knife in such a fierceness that she knocked the block over, and then she started stabbing away at herself. Okay, I'm presenting that to you as a possibility. Now let's look at the way she stabbed herself up. All right, so this, I want to, by the way, I did get some of these photos from Gavin Fish, and I want to point out that Gavin Fish is one of the links Benny sent me. It's in the links below. He has a really a strong site on Ellen Greenberg. Obviously, he's very pro trying to get what he calls justice for Ellen Greenberg. He's put a lot of work into gathering up all kinds of materials, a lot of the legal issues, the photos, whatever. So I appreciate that, and I do have him linked below, so if borrowing this photo, I do want to give him credit. I don't even know if this I don't believe is his photo, but I'm not sure how this works, whether he got it someplace else. But anyway, I got it off of his site. So she got 20 wounds, all right? And so they're showing here how the knife would have gone into these different places. Now, this is a little bit dramatic because, you see all these knives and you think of her as having 20 knives in her body, but that's not true. This is just the locations that 20 knives hit. So if you're committing suicide, it is pretty dramatic. Usually you might think if she was looking up painless suicide, she might have gone for over-medicating herself. She might have gone for, something less painful. Even just slitting your wrist and making sure nobody finds you until you died, that's kind of more normal. Even hanging yourself in the closet with your robe tie, just bending your knees and just passing out and not standing back up, that's pretty painless. This is not painless. This is extremely wow. You have to be usually when you see this, it's usually somebody who's schizophrenic, and I'm not saying all schizophrenics do this, but at a point where you see your reality is so gone that you think demons are out there and all kinds of things, so you can do things that somehow your mind overrides what you're doing, or you're on methamphetamine or bath salts, where somehow you're so speedy that you don't feel pain and that you do bizarre things like rip your whole face off. That's happened. Also, it's highly male. Males tend to stab themselves up a lot more than females do, especially that many times. So I want to point that out. And just to be fair, I will point out this because can people do horrible things? Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back a second. I want to show you this. Hold on, I want to show you this. Okay, these are the stab wounds when you don't have all the knives hanging around. Okay, so you see the stab wounds to her head, the back of her head, and you see the stab wounds to her chest and abdomen. This is what they would look like. This is not autopsy pictures. This is a model. So this is, and by the way, I'm going to show a few icky things, so if you want to throw up, just look away for a while, and I'll tell you when I'm over with the icky pictures. But just these are the stab wounds, and I want to show you that a number of these stab wounds were very, very shallow, and sometimes they're called hesitation marks. Now, this is an actual autopsy photo, and you'll see the two biggies. That's where the arrows go. It's like, okay, that person got stabbed there. But you see those little flowery things? Those are showing you where the very small, tiny hesitation things were. And this is, I want to point out with my knife. Okay. Let's see if I can get it close to you. Do you see this one little line right here? Whoops, sorry. This teeny line here. Okay, she had a bunch of these that were really shallow. So they look like hesitation marks. They could be hesitation marks. And hesitation marks are that, you're trying to get up the courage to stab the crap out of yourself in a really bad way. So, you're just kind of doing this. Ow, okay, okay, can get a handle, and then you go bigger. Okay. I just got demonetized. Okay, so anyway, these are the tiny little these are the tiny ones, and let me tell you how many of them there were. I have an actual picture of how many there were, but not that. Okay, wait a minute, I gotta find it. There were, okay, I actually went through all the stab wounds, and if you look at this, if you see that A, chest wound, point 2 is that little thing I'm talking about. B, chest is the little thing again, point 2. D, point 2. F, point 2. G, point 2. See how many little ones there are on the chest. And then you have the neck. You'll see down at K, you'll see point 3. L, you'll see point 2. M, you see point 3. Those are all little teeny wounds, and very small, very shallow. And if you look over to your right side here, I have the level of the stabs. So the tiny neck stabs are 3, the medium neck stabs are 5, and the deep neck stab is 2, and then there's an incised head wound. That's that big cut you see on her head. On the abdomen, you see one just big, huge, some big stab to the stomach, or abdomen is not really her stomach. And then tiny chest stabs are 5. medium are 2, and deep is 1. So if you're looking at that, you could say, as far as suicide goes, she started doing hesitation things and then got a little more brave, stabbed bigger, and then did the biggies. Same here. She stabbed small, did medium, and then did the biggies. Okay, you could say that. And I also want to point out, when you get to the biggies, let me show you the biggies. Okay, so here is a picture of the 4 biggest ones. Okay, so you've got there's 5 of them. N and T up in the scalp, they're pretty big, and also E, H, and I in the abdomen and in the chest are pretty big. Now let me show you what those were. So if you look at my little knife here, okay, so this is the tiny ones. The ones here are medium. This, and I can't really show it here. This and this up to here is actually, her chest one was here. So this entire thing went into her chest. I would have used a full knife, but I only have really pretty Japanese knives and I didn't want to screw them up. So I used my cheap knife. So this was the chest one all the way up here. And the head one was like the one that went into her, like the back of her head, and went into what they considered possibly knocking her out completely, was about here. So and then there were 2 more that were really big, and then there's these medium ones, and then there's these little ones. So there's all kinds of different ones. Now I'm going to show you the big ones. This is the ones that went into the head. They are pretty damn deep. Okay. Now this one even shows it better. T, see how that goes right into the spinal column? That's the one where the new pathologist said, you know, if that went in there, it would have immobilized her, and she couldn't do any more after that. So and it's pointed out by the doc and his the link I have below. Let me get his name straight again. Guy DeAndrea. He was a former prosecutor, homicide guy. He is great. I really love his stuff. And he points out, if T went into the spine like that and cut through to the point where she couldn't function, this is a homicide. If it missed that exact point, it could just numb her and it could be a suicide. He points out that since, you know, we've only got one person on one side and one person on the other, maybe we need to get more, you know, research on this and more expert opinion to know about that. But it's a pretty serious through the, you know. Anyway, but let me show you a couple things, because people don't believe that people who commit suicide can do really strange things. Okay, let me show you this. All right, this person stuck a knife through their eye. The guy survived. This was a man. He survived. Didn't have an eye left, but he survived. Okay, this person did what we're kind of seeing here. This person stuck this through the back. I'm not sure where these even went in at. Oh, this went in through the front of the neck. Oh, that's pretty nasty. This person survived as well, believe it or not. Okay, so, you know, you can, especially if you're on bath salts or something, take knives and stab the living crap out of yourself. You can do it. And I want to point out something else. When let me see if I can find a picture here that they're talking about. That's not it. Hold on, let me go back up. I got to go back up to. That's not it. Hold on a second. Let me find it, because I want to kind of show you how you could, just to be fair. Where'd my picture go? But all my photos disappeared. This is, by the way, the knife. This is the knife that was actually used. So you see it's a bit long. Turn this around. Oh, this way. Everything's backwards when you do your screen. Okay, mine obviously is a lot shorter, and that's why I showed up to here, because that's what it would have been. So, okay, so, but let me see if I can find this picture. Where'd it go? Okay, hold on one second. Let me see if I can find. Is it going to be missing on me? It is. Okay, some of my settings. When everything got scrambled coming back, things disappeared. I'm going to see if I can pull it back up, though. Let me see if I can find it. Just give me a sec, because I thought it was really kind of interesting and and I wanted to show it to you. So hold on. I did find out I could do these things during the show and actually add stuff during the show, and I didn't know I could do that, which is pretty awesome. Where's my picture? Come on. I put it up here. I made this nice picture. Oh yeah, here. Okay, this is the one I want. Okay. Ta-da. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So now this picture. This is a model again. So if you've been away, I'm not going to show any more gruesome pictures. Well, except for this. Okay. So I want to show you the model, and it shows this gash in her head, and it shows these stab wounds here, and then we have the stab wounds, abdomen, chest. Okay. Now some people point out. So I'm going to do a crime scene demonstration, and I'm really upset that they never did apparently do a crime scene reconstruction where you see if things can be done. Now, one of the things people will say is that when it comes to this, the head, that you see how far over this is, they're like, oh man, how did she get in that weird position and try, who does like that? Okay, folks, it's called turning your head. It's not really that hard when you turn your head. So that whole, when people say that nonsense, it's just simply not true. She has this, let's see, I've got to figure it, it's over on this side of her head. She's got this gash. It's possible, she took this up and gashed her head going this way and then stabbed herself like this. It's possible. The biggest problem is not the locations or the gash. It's that she had the two very deep ones. So after she did the really deep one, then she does the super deep one into her spine, essentially. And even if it didn't kill her, it's a pretty deep thing to then pull out. And then she has to go for the chest ones. Again, we have some what seems like hesitations, then we got a big one to the abdomen, and then the final one to the chest. On bath salts, I believe it. On no bath salts, I'm having a little trouble with it. I find it possible. So this is why I want to point out that because it's possible, the original determination, the door's locked, he had to break it down, therefore there was no stranger. He came in, he found his fiancé lying in the blood with a knife in her chest. No one had been there but her, and it's possible, in theory, unless that thing completely made her immobile, but it's possible. Okay, so that's where they're coming from, and they're also seeing that she has psychiatric problems. She does. I'm sorry, there's something going on with that girl. She wanted to move home, but the psychiatric problem may also mean that she's scared of her fiancé, that there has been some type of abuse or some kind of something going wrong where she's like, I'm supposed to marry this dude, but he's creeping me out. Maybe she's seeing psychopathy in him. Maybe he's being very controlling, and there's some evidence of this later on. So, but for in the immediate time, they may have just said, well, she went to a psychiatrist, and she was having issues, and she couldn't live with things any longer, and he went out and he came back, and the place was locked up, and he had to break it down, and there's this dead fiance, suicide. She could have done it, unless that one old stab here incapacitated her completely. And that's why, let me get his name straight again, Guy D'Andrea, who I do love, if he's right, if he could prove that, then it would be all over, it would be a homicide. But without proving that, then she could achieve what they said she achieved. Now, having said all that, now we have to go to whether the other evidence connected with this situation that should have been investigated further could prove otherwise. Now, before I go on to could it be homicide, let me just look at your 1,000 comments. Okay. Oh my goodness. Answer here. Ryan asked, did the partner take a polygraph? No. They never really investigated this very well as a homicide. As a matter of fact, I don't see any interrogation of him at all, which is very concerning. They also did not do luminol, which the doc points out. That guy points out, I can't remember his name, D'Andrea, I'm going to learn that because I like him. He points out, if they'd done luminol, they could learn more about blood patterns, whether things were wiped up or where blood might have been, that somebody took care of, but they didn't do that. I also say they didn't do a proper examination of the door, and so none of that was done. So that's very concerning. So I'm going to go back and look at a couple more. Here's a question here, and then Anne says, any neighbors hear anything or know these two? The only thing, now this is an interesting point, Anne. I can't find out anything about the guy. I mean, what kind of guy was he? People say the family liked him. She said nothing bad about him at the psychiatrist. But you know, a lot of times when people are in a relationship with somebody who's very controlling or quite psychopathic, they keep gaslighting them, and so they keep thinking it's their problem. And the gaslighting that is done is so severe that you start losing faith in yourself, and you start feeling you're a failure, and you become very thankful you got this great guy who's better than you. So this could all be going on, and she won't be able to express it because she doesn't realize it's happening. So we don't know much about him. We honestly don't. He has remarried a very wealthy woman, and they have a little girl. So he's gone on with his life. And as far as the neighbors, I don't know anything, whether they knew. I don't know if they did anything with the neighbors. The neighbors did say, all they said was they heard him yelling, for her name, and that was basically it. I don't know I think they might have said they heard him break down the door, but I'm not sure that that's true. So, basically they heard him yelling for her. I think that's all they actually heard. So let me go back and, okay, let me see what Benny has to say. Pat, would there not be some marks on the hand she used to stab herself, as she must have used a lot of force to make the big ones? The shaft of the knife must have left some marks on her hands. Benny, it's a very good point. Because what Benny's saying is that, when you see this, and mine's like, let me go back and find the knife. Okay, let me find the knife. Put the knife over my head here. Okay, where's my knife? Knife, come back. Okay, here we go. So this knife, it doesn't have a really big area here. It doesn't. I mean, some knives have a really big, I don't know what you would call it. There's a word for it, but it's big here. So what happens is it whacks, into your hand when you're doing that. I don't see a really big part of that knife, so it's theoretically possible she could have done that and not actually left any damage to her hand. It's possible. The problem with a lot of things are they're possible. Doesn't mean that they're probable. But it's interesting. And no, there were no marks that we know of. There were also no defense wounds. And people ask, why are there no defense wounds? And this was a big issue. I forgot to even mention this. I'm glad you brought this up, Benny. There were no defense wounds to her hands and this. So usually when somebody's stabbing the living crap out of you, usually what you're doing is putting up your hands, you're trying to protect your head, your arms are getting cut up. When they try to stab you here, you're like, She had nothing like that. So this is one other reason why the suicide thing was so strong, because almost everybody has defense wounds and somebody's stabbing them 20 times. So I get that. So the question is there an explanation to explain away why there will be no defense wounds? So let's take a look a little further on this. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Yes, I know. Actually, I'm looking back up now. Steve is saying there were no defense wounds. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. So let me go back now to where I'm at here. Okay, let me go back here. Okay, so now I want to start over with, could this be something else? Oops, wait a minute. Let me. I always forget to remove stuff that's in front of me. Not that I want to remove you, Steve, but hey. Okay, so let's go back. I want to go back to the beginning and where I want to go through the different issues now of the door, then his behavior, or maybe it'd be his behavior, and then the door, and then the 911 call, the actual stab wounds, what happened with the blood spatter pattern. I'm going to talk about the blood spatter pattern in the kitchen and how I think it is possible that this could be a homicide. I'll admit it now. Because of certain things that really bug me, that don't, for me, match a suicide. Okay, so let's go for it. Okay, now I'm going to first talk about, okay, so he can't get in the door, he says. Let's go look at some of his behaviors. Now, originally, let me go back and pull up the Remember what the police said about him in this statement here. Okay. In the front where it says background, it says, he opened the door with his keys, which was secure from the inside. He proceeded to try and contact the decedent via text messages, telephone calls, and emails for approximately an hour before he forced entry into the apartment. What? Wait a minute. Okay, so first of all, let's assume she's suicidal. Usually you have some clue, like she's severely depressed, which he knows. She's on medication. I don't know what was happening before he walked out of the apartment, but you put the dang lock on. You would think that when he got back there and couldn't get her to answer the door, the first thing you would think is, oh my God, has something happened to her? Has she A, hurt herself? B, has she fallen and injured herself? Because he knows she's in the apartment. It's not like, oh, I don't know where she's at. He knows she's in the apartment. So he knows she's either ignoring him completely, which we'll bring up in the text messages, or she's hurt because she either hurt herself or she's injured. It takes him an hour to get into the apartment. I'm like, honey, you might be dead in there. No, you might be dying. I wonder if you've fallen and hurt yourself. Let me see if I can just waste an hour. Maybe you try to commit suicide in there. Maybe you took some pills and you only have like 30 minutes to live. Let me take an hour. That's a problem. I got a problem with that. I got a problem with how long it took him to find anybody. To get into the apartment. And he went to the guard, and if the guard isn't going to help him get into the apartment, I don't even know why he's bothering his time with him. Break into the damn apartment yourself if you're worried about your possibly dying fiancé. So then let's go to what happens next. All right, and supposedly he texts, and these are really interesting texts. First he says, hello, open the door. What are you doing? I'm getting pissed. Hello, you better have an excuse. That one creeped me out. You better have an excuse for what? Obviously you should think something went wrong in there, that she's hurt, but you're saying she has to have an excuse? That sounds like a very controlling and abusive human being to me. What the? You have no idea. I don't know what that even means. It almost looks like here. Now, you would think he would be putting out, and some people pointed this out, if he's innocent, he wouldn't, because he's innocent, he wouldn't say these things. In other words, he'd be saying, if he actually thinks she's screwing around with him. He's innocent because he thinks she's screwing around. That's why he's so mad at her. No, you're just locking me out of the apartment, you jerk. So that makes him innocent. But on the other hand, if he knows she's dead in there, and he starts immediately saying, are you hurt? Are you injured? Then he's got to get in there he's got to do something to get in there quick. So I don't know if he's just trying to buy time here and pretend he has no clue to why she'd be hurt. Oh, she couldn't be hurt because, remember, if he killed her, he knows she's hurt. He might be pretending she's not hurt. And so and that's why he's saying these things. So you can go two ways on the text messages. You can. Okay, so now he breaks into the apartment. All right. So he says, now let's take a look at the breaking into the apartment issue. Okay, so because this bugs me that they never did anything about this. They claim that he said he broke, what was it? I forgot what that word, I gotta look that up in a second. Hold on a second. Let me go back to this. I want to go back to the lock on the door. Okay, go back to, not that one. No, let me scroll up to the part where they said, this is the one that really bugs the heck out of me. They said he forced entry into the apartment. Okay. And then later they say he obviously forced entry in because the door was latched and broken with the screws on the door loose. Obviously forced in. Obviously. Okay. Here it is. Now, a lot of people are talking about how you can break into a room, into the place, if it's locked, how you can break in. It has no meaning for this case. I looked it up myself. You can use string. You can be outside. You can open that thing up and you put strings around this and you put strings around this and you can actually open the door from the outside. You can. Some people say you can use a credit card or a piece of hard board. Sometimes you can, but doesn't even matter. He didn't do that. So why are we even talking about him trying to get in from the outside. He says he broke the dang door down. The only issue is, did he? Now what we see here is the damage is only on this side of the door. It's not over here. What I would like to know is did they, and they obviously didn't. What I would have liked to have been done was some kind of crime scene reenactment. That from inside the apartment, there's a way to damage the door. To maybe open it up partially and then just put your foot in there, or just grab it and pull, or you could use an object and push the door. Could you cause this kind of damage? Could you undo it part way and then just pull it and then put it back, and therefore you'd have this kind of damage here? Because if he killed his fiancée, if Sam killed his fiancée, and then says, "Oh crap, and I got to cover this up, but we're the only two people here, I got to make it look like I wasn't in the apartment," he might say to himself, "Look, I'll make it look like the place is locked up, then I'll break this, and then I'm just going to go out and close the door, because unless somebody sees me actually break in," like the security guard apparently wasn't there, and even if the security guard was, you know what I'd do if I were him? I'd have the security guard following me, and I go into a panic, and I go to the door and I kick it in, and then everybody would think that was locked at the time. But it wouldn't have been locked. It would just be sitting there, because there's no proof that it was actually locked at the time he claimed he broke the door in. So I wonder whether he did this before he left the apartment and then just closed the door. And that way it would look like she had locked the door when she actually didn't. So, but apparently no crime scene reconstruction was done, so we don't know what happened there. But I would like to know, if he can do this, then maybe he didn't break that damn door down at all. Okay, so now he supposedly breaks the door down. And now he goes into the apartment, and I'm going to go through his 911 calls. And there's a link to Peter Hyatt below, who does great statement analysis, and he does a great statement analysis on this case, going through every one of these. He really breaks it down. And he's a master of this. I'm going to just go through some of the basics I see as a profiler. Okay, and go there and look at his later, because it's very, very good. Okay, so I'm just going to read a few things of this. So he says, when they first, 911, can we help you? Help, I need. He needs a lot. I just, and I've always told you, the word just means a lie is coming up. I just walked, he says it twice too, I just walked into my apartment. No, he didn't walk into his apartment. He broke into the apartment, which is right there. I'm like, what? You didn't walk in. You said you broke in. But guess what? Maybe he did walk in. That may be the truth. And he says, my apartment. Hey, that isn't your apartment, dude. That's our apartment. Your apartment with your fiancée, but apparently now that she's dead, it's your apartment. Okay, so I'm seeing right here, he starts out with saying, I need. And he's all about him. And then he says just twice, which means lie coming up. Walked in, which says that he didn't have to break in, which to me shows some guilt there, that he didn't have to actually do what he said he did. And my fiancé is on the floor with blood everywhere. Okay, I want to stop right here for just a sec. I just walked in, and my fiancé is on the floor with blood everywhere. And he calls 911. He apparently never gets near her. Now, first of all, there wasn't that much blood. It was around her, but it wasn't like he would be wading through the Red Sea. You know what I mean? She's dead in the corner of the kitchen, or indisposed in the corner of the kitchen with blood. He calls 911 and says, "Oh, she's over there in some blood." I'm sorry, how much do you love your fiancée? Because if it were me, I'd be racing to that damn corner of the room, and I'd be grabbing her body and holding up her head and seeing what the hell was wrong with her, and see if I could save her life. To know what I need to do. Maybe I need to put pressure on something. Maybe I need to give her CPR. Maybe I need to find out if her eyes are open or not. The dude's calling from across the room. She's over there in a pile of blood. What? Pool of blood. What? Okay, that's something wrong with that. That's craziness right there. Okay, then he goes on about the apartment. Then he says, please hurry, please. He said, where's she bleeding from? Okay, so he says, going down here to the fourth line, I don't know. I'm looking at her right now. You sure is, from 6 feet away? I don't know. I can't see anything. He's not willing to touch his own girl. This is his fiancée, the woman he's going to marry and live with for the rest of his life. He's not even touching her. I can't see anything. She doesn't. There's nothing broken. Well, if you're not touching her, how do you know there's nothing broken? What do you expect to see? Like what? Her leg on, no. 90-degree angle. And then he says, she's bleeding. Well, she's not bleeding. She's bled because she's dead. Ellie! Okay. So then he goes, she said, the 911 says, you can't see where the blood is coming from? He says, I think it's her head. I think she hit her head. Okay, so she's got blood on her head, so she could have hit her head. Well, dude, if she hit her head, why aren't you over there trying to help her? Oh, no, you're just calling 911 from across the room. All right, next. She might have fallen everywhere. It's everywhere. She might have slipped. There's blood on the table. Well, there's no table. That's the counter he's talking about. And her face is a little purple. Okay, I'm going to make a comment on that. Okay, then, okay, look at her chest and see if it's going up and down. I don't see her moving. Do you know how to do CPR? I don't. Okay, I can tell you what to do until they get there. I want you to keep her flat. Now she's in the corner of that room. She's kind of like on her butt, and she's leaning back. Her legs are out straight, and her shoulders are apparently leaning up against the cabinet. And finally he says, are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until I get there? And then he makes this great comment. I guess I have to, right? Aw, you think? I guess I got to do it, you know? Oh, crap. You know, got to save my girl's life, you know? I guess if I have to. That's concerning. Right there, that's concerning. Okay, so listen, okay. Don't freak out. Okay, I'm trying not to. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Okay, so he's supposedly getting near. And then he says, oh my God, she stabbed herself. And right here you're like, you know, there's a knife in the girl's chest. Unless she's like so slumped over you can't see it, which she's supposedly not. But even so, if you'd gone in there and saw your woman dead in the corner in dire distress, you would think you would have gone over there and held her in your arms and noticed a damn knife in her chest. But since you're calling 911 from across the room, you can't see the knife, I guess. But now, oh my God, he's discovered she's got a knife on her chest. Oh my God, she stabbed herself. Okay. Then he goes on and he tries something different. She fell on a knife. Oh no, her knife is sticking out. Okay. I can see his point about she stabbed herself, because if there's no, well, no, I can't. Because at that point, when he breaks in, he might think he's the only one to get into the apartment. So, you know, yeah, okay. He might think no one else could get in. She's got emotional problems. She stabbed herself. I'll give him that one. Then he says that she fell on her knife. When was the last time you saw somebody fall on a knife in their chest? I mean, you know, I'm sorry. That does, right there, that doesn't make sense. So now he's trying to go from suicide to accident. Yeah, okay. And then it's her knife, not our knife. Again, it's his apartment, but it's her knife. It's her fault. Okay. Her knife is sticking out. Her what? I think the 911 call is going to say, what? There's a knife sticking out of her heart. Oh, she stabbed herself. I guess so. I don't know. Or she fell on it. I don't know. Well, don't touch you. Don't touch it. Okay, so I just have to let it go now. Something. Okay. And there's a point in here, and I forgot where it was, where he chuckles. It's like, yeah, I'm not touching that. Or the thing, oh, I mean, you can't, if there's a knife in her chest, it's kind of hard of you to do CPR. Oh, no, oh, my goodness, okay. Oh, my goodness, okay. Oh, my goodness, I can't do CPR. But he does chuckle in here, and I'm just blanking on where the chuckle was. Oh, maybe it's further on. The knife is still inside. What? Is the knife still inside of her? Yeah, I didn't take it out. I think that's where he chuckled. I didn't take it out. Really? Okay. And it looks okay, goes on, and then he goes on. Oh my God! Oh my God! And you know, I did another video where the beginning of it. That's the one about the boy who killed his brother, and he comes up on the phone. He goes, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" Same thing here. Oh my God! Oh my God! All right. Let's see. There's no sign of life. Pinch her arm. And then let's see what he says here. It says the knife looks pretty deep. It's a long knife. And then it says, he says, I can't believe this. So what? Yeah, was it just you there with her? Well, yeah, we were the only ones here. Ah, okay, yeah, he's admitting that. And then the 911 says, and she ran in the door, you said, and latched it shut? Oh, no. I went downstairs to work out, and when I came back up, the door was latched. Like it was, it wasn't like, it was locked from the inside, and I'm yelling, so I guess, was the house broken into? No. And it goes on there about that. And I had a part here, and it's somehow missing on, where did it go? Did I miss it here? There's another part where the fire department comes on, and for some reason it's missing. The fire department comes on because they have two sections of the phone call. And when the fire department comes on, he explains everything over again. He says, well, I was with her, and then I went downstairs to the gym. And he really wants to point out he went to the gym to work out. I went to work out. I have a reason for not being in there with her. And I stayed for a while, and then I came back, and it was locked. He goes into this whole spiel. None of this matters, dude. Your loved one is dying or dead on the floor, and you're trying to get 911 out to save her, but apparently not really. Not once did he actually say, you got to save her. Please come quickly. You need to save her. He's more like, come quickly. Oh my God, Oh my God. So his 911 call has a lot of red flags in it, shall we say that? Lots of red flags. And Peter Hyatt will go over the red flags with you on that if you want to have more. They said these are my profiler way of doing it. I do use statement analysis. Peter just goes into a bigger depth of statement analysis, but I think it's fascinating. The 911 call, it doesn't sit right with me. Let me put it that way. Now I tried. I thought there was a kind of a cool thing that let me put this back up again. Where did it go? Okay, hold on a second. I got to put my. Yeah, that's the one I want next. Okay, so one of the things that was it Guy DeAndre who said that first? Yeah, I think no, it was Peter. No, it was Peter who said this, and I thought it was really good. He said, "I'm going to start out trying to make this guy innocent. I'm going to start to think. Okay, the guy could be weird. The guy could, he could have Asperger's. He could, be his behaviors. He could have other behaviors. Just the way he thinks is weird. So he's coming across really badly. So we're going to think of him as innocent coming in the door, and that she really committed suicide." And I tried to do the same thing, and I really tried to not, to kind of excuse away everything he said. But it was a lot of work, It wasn't going really well. It was a lot of work. Okay, so I'm now going to go to the most important part to me. Hold on a second. Let me see what your comments are before I get to what I think happened in this scene of how she most likely died. Oh, this is interesting. Kay says, my daughter was with a psychopath who is now with a lovely girl. He was an abuser who always convinced others he was a good guy. That's exactly right. Very good. They're very good at that. So, okay. So, okay. Oh, Kelly. Uh-oh, Kelly. Okay. Kelly says those drops in one pic look like straight gravity drops. I'm going to tell you something that makes me different from maybe some other profilers. I love it when people see stuff. I don't want to be the only freaking profiler on the planet. There's a thing in the profiling world where, we're the only ones who can profile, nobody else can do it. It's just us gods of profiling. And we can't even teach it to you because, we're just so brilliant. We just know things. No, you can teach things. And using logic and understanding how things work, we should have more profilers. We have tons of doctors, we have tons of lawyers, tons of teachers. Why is it we only have 9 profilers in the FBI and like 5 of us on the outside? I mean, really? We have a dozen of us in the country? Why? Can't we teach this? Can't other people learn? And can't other really smart people with logic? So I'm going to get to that, Kelly. I'm excited because, hey, that's cool. Okay, let me get to it right now. All right, so now let's take a look. Hold on a second. Gotten all excited here. Let's take a look. Going back to this, the block. Supposedly she's got there's 2 knives in the sink. Like she was chopping up something. Like she was actually at this counter, standing there, doing stuff. Okay? I don't know if there was an argument prior, something went wrong, and she stormed stormed out, went to the kitchen, said, I'm going to go home, I'm going to leave you, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what happened. We will never know. But this bothers me because normally you would not see this in a suicide. This looks like somebody reached for that. Oh, it's over here. Reached for that, grabbed it, and with such rage that they knocked the thing over. Those things aren't that light. They tend to be heavy, and you got those things in. They're supposed to stand up. I mean, if you just pick the knife out, it's not supposed to fall over. So somebody has to really do this for it to fall over. This is a small kitchen, so if she's in this spot here, and he comes up behind her, grabs that knife out, now he is behind her. And I wish I could show this in a good way. Okay, I'm just going to put my hand here for her, okay? Now, I'm going to be him. She's here. He is, it's backwards when you do these things, so. This is I'm a right-handed person, and I have to do this backwards for the video because it flips it. Okay, so let's say she's here, okay? He's gone and grabbed this in anger, okay? Now, he is right behind her. And if the one I think, I can't do it that way. I can't do anything with my left hand, so I'm going to have to pretend it's the other way. Okay, if he grabs her around this part of her body and restrains her, doesn't necessarily have to do anything huge to her, but he can restrain her. I mean, he's a big guy, she's a lady. Okay, he restrains her, and he's got this in his hand. Now, one of the things that could happen is, as she's being restrained and she's starting to fight back, it's very likely that this just could come right across her head because she's doing this. Also, these small what looks like hesitations could simply be because she's trying to get away, and as he's going, and he's right behind her. So when he's right behind her, he doesn't have as much room. So he might be, things might be just doing this because he's so close to her and to her neck that he's not really stabbing. He's trying to get a chance, and she's maybe bucking backwards and preventing him from making the big deep one. I think that it's very possible he grabbed her somehow, accidentally did that, and then he's trying to get at her and made a few stabs close by, and then went for the two big ones, and the big one went in here. Now, at that point, he's gone through her neck. I believe he may have stepped back because he thought he's done damage. He feels this because this is where it went. I think it went up to this point. This is a long way into that person's head, and you can feel it go in. And he has to know something's happened. Now, let's assume she was incapacitated, like is suspected. Then she goes sort of half limp, and she might be conscious but limp. And he pulls away from her, and she drops to the floor. Now, one of the things that's bothered me about this crime is the blood spatter pattern. So thank you, Kelly. You're right on the money here. Okay, let me show you the blood spatter pattern issues. Let me first put this up. This guy's Dr. DeBacco. I put a link below to him. He does a very nice short explanation. You'll see these different blood spatter patterns here. And every pattern has a purpose as to why it's doing what it's doing, okay? And there's also, this is my favorite book in case you decide to get really into things. This is Blood Spatter Pattern Analysis. This is the best book on blood spatter pattern. Okay. I should put that link below too, and I will. I forgot to do that. Okay, so now let's look at something that bothers me. Okay, this is a blood spatter issue. You see that baseball bat, and it's being swung, and you see those little drops going dunk, 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 dunk. Okay, they go dunk, 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 dunk for a reason. All right. So, okay, now I'm going to turn back to suicide. There's not a lot of little drops all over the kitchen. Because you think when you're stabbing yourself, you stab yourself when you come out with a bloody knife and you're going again, you kind of do this shit. Things go. Little blood things go. And there's nobody there, you just do it, you're all by yourself. Then you turn around, there should be these little patterns, just little blood spatter patterns everywhere. And if you look at, take a look at the one up in the left-hand corner. Oh, it's not a really good one, but okay. The one in the right-hand corner. These are kind of like when you throw blood off, they hit and then they make a little tail depending on what direction it's going in. That's kind of a crappy picture, actually. So yeah, that's not a really good picture, but unfortunately. But you have a little blood, and then a little tail comes, depending on the direction. But you'd think when you have blood on your knife and you're by yourself and you're stabbing and you're trying to do, you'd see more of this. We don't see it. Okay, we don't see that. We do see the blood on the floor where she's sitting. We also see what seems to be a pretty open pattern where she was laying, but why don't we see more blood there? So she's standing at this counter and she's stabbing herself. I'm just thinking we should see more blood up here. Okay, now, Kelly points out something very, very important. And this is the issue of those darn drops. Okay, right in 90, see the one that says blood drop and elongation. So you can see there are all these percentages. This is the way the blood is going to hit something. So when it comes flying around, it hits something, and when it hits at an angle, it leaves a tail. But you see the one that says 90%, it's straight down, makes a nice little circle now, doesn't it? Do you see this right here? Circle, 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 circle. What the heck is all that? Now she's over here. She's over here. She's over here. What is all this? What's all that drop? Now theoretically she could have, after she stabbed herself in the neck, before she turned around and fell onto the floor, she could have held the knife out. But you would think there would be more stuff in the middle there before she went down on the floor. She could have. But what bothers me is, again, this area here along with this thing here. Now, let me show you a thing called void pattern. Okay, so when it says here, created when an object blocks the deposition of blood spatter onto a target surface or object. Examples. Okay, so there's different examples, but in other words, if I put my hand up here and blood flies like it's like spurting out of somebody's neck or something, what you'll see is this void pattern. It's like you'll see all this blood around here, but you'll see kind of like a white hand area, because it's like the blood never hit the wall. It hit my hand, so you don't see. So on the wall, you see all this blood, but you see like a white hand pattern. I see a lot of empty area here, and this is where I wonder whether he is behind her, and that's why when he's stabbing her and he's doing this, that the blood is coming back on him, not anywhere else. So, because he's blocking it. And then when she's on the floor, and the person's whatever, she's either doing it or he's doing it to the abdomen. Let me see if I can, he's either to the abdomen and then to the chest and to the heart. And there is a point when she's gone down to the floor, if he's standing here and he's holding the knife, it would do this thing called drip, 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 drip. This may be his hesitation, because he's going to have to make the final stab, the big one. And he might have done some small ones and then say, okay, here it comes. And meanwhile, it's going drip, 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 and then he makes the final stab, and that's the end of it. Now, this is just to be fair and not be unrealistic about this, I haven't had the pleasure of seeing the autopsy photos, every police report, the crime scene photos. I can't see much. This is all I've got. I haven't, I don't have the real pictures, and I don't have any more than this. Thank God I do have at least this much. So this would be a tentative analysis of the crime. It's tentative. I've looked at, could it be a suicide? Yes, but I see too much that's leaning over toward homicide. Her concerns about not living with him, going home to mom, his behaviors that took him an hour to want to even break into the house to find his dying fiancé, his strange text messages, his strange 911 call that really shows that he never even went near her before the 911 call. He never even checked her out because he already knew she was dead, in my opinion. So there was no reason for him to check her out. And that often happens. They don't think that way. It's like, but what would be the point? Well, most people wouldn't have known she was dead, and they would have checked to make sure their loved one was still breathing. You didn't even bother because Probably you knew she was dead. Your whole point was to call 911 and say, oh my God, I had to break into the apartment and I found her lying in a pool of blood and I don't know what happened. That's your intent. So I have problems with all of that. Then I have problems with this thing being pulled over, which looks to me like somebody doing something very quickly in a rage. And I have problems with the blood spatter pattern not really fitting a suicide as well as it fits a homicide, which includes the lack of cast-off patterns from where she were just doing it to herself without some, a homicide, he would be blocking a lot of the cast-off patterns, and the void pattern on the floor and all the drops. Now, I'm not a blood spatter pattern expert, and I haven't spent a great deal of time with this, so there might be some blood spatter person out there who goes, what is she? She's not an expert on that. I mean, I've done a lot of studies of blood spatter things, and usually I spend a lot of time going through, even I have to go back and look at books on different blood spatter patterns to make sure that I'm not talking crap. But, this is what I see. Put all together, I feel like the original investigation jumped to conclusions and didn't do their due diligence in doing proper interviews to check out whether the door lock could have been broken purposely before he left the room. That all the stuff with the blood spatter patterns, his statements, they didn't do any of that. And so I'm with the parents on the fact that I understand why they're upset. And I am one of these people. If you've known me, almost all the time, I keep telling people, the majority of the time when I look at a suicide, it's actually a suicide. That parents don't want to admit their child committed suicide, so they'll claim it's a homicide. They will harass the police for 2 decades. They will harass people like me and saying, why aren't you following up? Why won't you prove that this is a homicide? And I'm like, because it's a suicide. I can see it's a suicide. The police were correct. The majority of the time, almost always, it is a suicide. This is one case where I'm going to say, not so quick. I'm having issues. I'm having a problem with this. I'm having a problem making the determination that this is a suicide. The manner of death was a suicide. I'm having trouble with it. So that's where I'm coming from. Now I'm going to go to all your comments. I actually think my broadcast didn't end even though with the internet issue, so I'm so glad about that. Okay. Whew. This Doreen has a great comment here. 5 times he said I before he mentions her. Yeah, and Peter brings us up very, very well. I. It's about her. It's not about you, dude. It's about her. Oh, unless the whole issue is that it's about you. It's about you believing me. It's about I wasn't here. It's about I'm innocent. It's about I have nothing to do with this. Take care of me. Don't take care of her. I mean, I know she's dead. Take care of me. So very, very good. And yes, he did stutter on the pronouns. This is true. You went I a lot. Let's see. Let me see if I can go back up here and then come back down with all your great comments. Okay, this is true. And this is a great point, Gretchen. If someone had stabbed her, would it kill her waste time making all the small stab wounds? It seems strange. I think most people that stab go in with force, as it's often driven by rage. I agree with you. And that's why the police thought it was a suicide. But here's the thing. The problem may be that he wasn't trying to stab her with those others. It may be that she was moving and a knife just simply hit her in different places on the neck that were small because she was, oh geez, I just hit that wasn't smart. Ow. Anyway, now I have like a hesitation wound right here. I am not committing suicide. If I'm dead by the end of the day, somebody else did it. If a person is moving, those things can happen, okay? I think in the case here, it would absolutely be that, yeah, they could happen just by the movement of the person trying to struggle. And they're just accidentally, because he's trying to get in position to do stuff, and it just happens. There's a lot of medium wounds too. So there are times when if the person's moving, you get part way, but you know, sometimes you don't get there, sometimes you do get there. And if she's just struggling around, this can happen. As far as the chest goes, that's a little bit more, like you say, well, there's a few hesitation wounds there. It may be that he as she was going to the floor, and he's like, are you, here's something, are you dead? Are you dead? The 911 person told him to pinch her arm. This will be a little more effective. Are you dead? Maybe he found out she wasn't. Then he went for the big one. So it's a very good question. And that's the problem. When you're trying to weigh out suicide, homicide, it's not easy. And weird situations like this, which is why you have to take, as I always point out, the totality of the evidence. Don't just focus on one thing and say, oh, yeah, see, that proves this. No, not necessarily. But when you add everything together, then you have a bigger picture. I think they need to do, at the time, if I had been a profile at the time, in the first 48, which is when I think detectives need to do their own profiling and not jump to conclusions or go with their gut, they need to step back and say, okay, what if A isn't true, maybe B is true. So let me check out B. If they did that early on in a case like this, then they might have known, well, something's a little off here. Don't know what it means, but let's do more interviews. Let's do some crime scene reenactments. Let's do some, testing of things, that the luminol. Let's do these things to make sure that we're going in the right direction. And then when you do those things, then you have more idea which direction to go in. So I think that's very important. Let me back up here a little bit. And here we have one of the reasons that I have to get rid of. People have to block. Hello, Alley Cat. Alley Cat's here now. How long was he at the gym? There were some interesting points on that. He was supposedly there for a half an hour, and a lot of people say like that's it. Dude goes down, is half an hour enough? I think we could say it's acceptable. Sometimes if you're doing it more regularly, you might want to go down and just work on your arms for half an hour, or your legs for half an hour, or your abdomen, or whatever. A lot of guys go down and want to work out for an hour or two, but that doesn't mean he did. So I'm going to let that go. However, it was claimed by the security guard that he might have been seen in boots and not like tennis shoes or something. That's a little weird. So he was gone long enough, in my opinion, if he committed this crime, to have him look like he's not there, because that would be the point. The point would be that you wouldn't want to walk out the door and then go right back in. You want to go away and have an alibi for what happened while you were gone. And I didn't see a very good report on time of death, so I'm not quite sure about that. Let's see. I'm going to go back down now. This is a weird thing. Yeah, I forgot about this, Benny. This was unconscionable for the police to do this. The fiancé's family was allowed into the apartment the day after her death. They cleaned the apartment and take the phones and the computers. In other words, the police allowed the chain of custody to be broken. So if they got the computers back later, but you've already let somebody tamper with them. And a chain of custody is supposed to be that once the police arrive on the scene, nothing leaves with anybody else. Everything is documented as to what it was, where you found it, what you put it in, like the bag or whatever. You took it to this place. Nothing goes out of the chain of custody, so that you can't say, well, somebody could have messed with it. Yeah, that was very poorly done and very concerning. Yeah, that very much upset me. Let's see what else we have here that I haven't said. Okay, certainly you would try to defend yourself. Yeah, I think an interesting thing about the defense problem with the defense wounds is that if he had his arms around her hands would not be able to move. I've had people try to do the bear huggy thing. I can't move for crap. Now, I want to point this out too. So sometimes people, she would have been able to break out. Not necessarily. A lot of times when they get you around this part, you just can't really move. And by the way, if they grab you and immediately start stabbing you in the neck, you get stunned really quick. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been stabbed in the neck except what I just did to myself. But you know that just this is happening. You're first of all, you're in shock. You can't. Somebody's behind you, stabbing you in the damn neck. And if he got one in, he might have gotten like one of the deeper ones in. And then she's like, what? And then she's trying to, and then everything goes like this. And then he gets the big one in. This happens in seconds. And not. It doesn't take like 2 minutes or something. People always imagine, oh my God, it's 2 minutes. No, that's not the way it works. You can stab. Like if you're doing this type of sting and you're having this thing, in 5 seconds, it's over. And she might have already been stabbed to the point where she's out of it. So that's the reason there may have been no defense wounds. Because if he came at her from the front, I would say, yeah, somebody's coming at you with a knife, you're going to do this crap. And even if he doesn't have good hold on you and your hands are free, you can do this. But if he's got you by the wraparound bear hug thing, you simply can't move. And because I see this here, and she was supposedly, she's killed right in this corner, it does make me wonder if he just came up behind her and he grabbed the knife and then he grabbed her. I can't prove it. It's interesting. That's the way it looks to me. Okay, let me see. No, she was not drugged. There was no evidence that she was drugged. And besides which, she was, moving around, so no. Okay, that was good. Bedtime says, Gretchen, many murders by stabbing have little stabbing that don't penetrate. Things, they're not always clear, even in suicides. That's why people go, well, I can't believe the person would have, like stab themselves to the heart. Because I'm looking at this sucker, and I'm thinking, could I just go to the heart? If you're really super, like, depressed and you're on some kind of drugs that make your brain not function properly and make you just not feel pain, you may stab yourself to the heart. People do it all the time, So that's why you can't just say, oh, it couldn't be suicide. It could have been, just it was less likely than homicide. Okay, this is correct, yes. Pinned and unable to use her arms in defense. Oh, and I wanted to bring up the picture. I forgot to do that. Where's my picture? It was of her. Okay, here we go. Let me pull up this. Okay, so this is. She had bruises, mostly on the right side of her body, which I thought was interesting. Her right arm, her right leg, her right side. Now, why would that be? Okay. Now she's got one on the left hand. Now, also supposedly, this was. There were some that were older bruises and so on and so forth. So they claim for the older bruises that maybe she played sports and contact sports and had bruises, and that was kind of mocked. They said, well, she's a great school teacher. little bratty kids, I can kick the crap out of you. Annie, are you still here? You can kick the crap out of you. Anyway, I have an experience where I did karate, and I was working on what's called the makarari board, and so I was doing a lot of elbows and forearms to the makarari board. And when I went to the beach the next day, people took me aside to ask me if my husband was beating me, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice that. I was messed up. I had bruises everywhere. I bruise very easily. So yes, she could have been involved in a sport that caused bruises. I don't know, again, I don't have access to finding out how old each one of the bruises were, because I haven't seen the crime scene photos to say, oh, well, this one's obviously a week old, and this one's obviously just happened that day. The fact that they're on the right side of the body makes me wonder. So again, did he grab her and push her up against the counter so she was hitting parts of her body against the counter? I don't know, but I can't see the actual photos. But, she might have sustained some bruising that had to do with this incident, and if she were killing herself, the bruising wouldn't occur. So that's an issue. No, and this is a good question, though, Ann. Any of her blood found in the gym? No. That was another interesting point. Only her DNA was on the knife handle, but she had a white towel, like with her hand or something. She had a clenched right hand, and then she had this white towel. And, I'm going to say, if I had just killed her with a knife, I'd be taking that white towel and just wiping off the handle and then putting it in her hand. That's what I'd do. But his DNA would be in the apartment anyway. If he didn't cut himself during this attack, then he wouldn't leave his blood there. But he would indeed, you would think, because, as I point out with the void issue, if he was stabbing her, instead of her blood going outward, if she were alone, that maybe some of the blood came back on him, on like a shirt or something. They never did find bloody clothes. He might have left for the purpose of getting rid of a bloody outfit. He might have cleaned up. We just don't know because they never did a proper investigation. So we don't know. But there was not blood found in the gym, but I don't know that they ever looked for anything. You know, he could have gotten rid of something somewhere. I just don't know. Let me see what we have here. No. Could he have knocked her out before all the stabbing wounds took place? No, I don't think so. There's too much going on. There's blood on top of the counter, just a couple drops. There's this thing pulled over. Everything happened in that corner. So no, I don't think she was knocked out. There wasn't a sign of her being punched in the face, or nose broken, or anything like that. Or there was. Okay, I forgot about this. That's why I like you guys here. Okay, there was some theory that there was some like possible choking to the neck, or maybe a fingernail. Again, I don't have the autopsy photos. I don't know how accurate this is. So again, he could have armbarred her. He could have grabbed her to some extent around the throat at some point. I don't know. I don't. But there was supposedly something here, which again shouldn't be there with suicide. So let's see what else we have here. And that may be. Maybe he needs an hour to clean himself up. This may be true. He was sending text messages, but we don't know where he sent the text messages from or the phone. He was in the building or outside the building at the trash cans or the drainage thing. How accurate we have to where he made these things. He could be walking. He could be somewhere in a bathroom, like going, "Open the door," but he's in the bathroom, right? Nobody said he was actually at the door when he sent these messages. They're just cover for him if this is what he did. So that's a very good point. Very, very good point. Let's see. And yes, and definitely he needed an alibi if he were involved. That is correct. That's an interesting point. Seems like the couple was used to arguing. Well, most of us who have been in relationships have had moments where we argued. So, we don't want to jump to conclusions that arguing necessarily means this relationship is a disaster and is headed for, murder. But the insulting thing he said to her, and the text message kind of creeped me out. It's like, you better have an excuse. That was the thing that bothered me. It's like, who says that? Usually a very controlling person. You better have an excuse. It doesn't sound like a couple in love about to get married. And maybe she thought that was the problem. I think that's why she wanted to go home. Something was not right. I mean, usually you're in seventh heaven right before you're getting married. You could be stressed about the wedding and all that, but if you want to leave your home and your love to go have your mommy take care of you and your daddy, that doesn't sound like things are going well. It just doesn't. Okay, this is good. Let's see what your sailor says. But if he killed her, maybe he couldn't be using this language, sounding so aggressive and threatening either. His behavior is really weird. I'm more convinced he was abusive and freaked out. We don't know what led up to that exact moment. A lot of times when we see a violent crime like this, if it's a homicide, there was something that set that person off. And usually that means that the person has a personality disorder, because most of us, if we get upset, we just stomp. Well, guys will stomp out the door, and the woman will go, "Why don't we talk about it?" But then there's sulking that goes on. There's the silent treatment. There's all kinds of methodologies we use. But usually we don't, in that moment, commit suicide or homicide. So there has to be something severely wrong to do one or the other. And if it's a homicide, sometimes if she said, for example, "I don't know if this wedding can go through. I don't know if I want to marry you," I don't, whatever. He could have lost it. I mean, that's because his ego's hurt, and it could be borderline personality disorder, which says you can't hurt me, you can't hurt my ego, I can't take it. I don't know, but so because we don't exactly know yet what he has done. I don't know that that's true. He acted guilty because he knew it would look so bad. No, I think he acted guilty because that's why I'm pointing with the 911 call. The thing that impresses me the most is that he never bothered to actually go up to her body and check it out. I can't fathom that. I can't fathom. Let's say, I was married for 25 years. If I couldn't get in there and then I got into my house and I found my husband lying in the kitchen with blood on him, I'm not going to run to the phone and call 911 or pick up my cell and call 911. The first thing I'm going to do is run straight over to him. I don't care if I get blood on me. I'm in a panic to see if he's alive, see if I can help him. I'm going to turn his body over. I'm going to look at him. I'm going to look him in the eyes. I'm going to check his face. I'm going to check his head. I'm going to check his body. Even though I don't know what I'm doing. I'm no nurse. I'm not going to go from across the room going, I found my husband over there in the kitchen in the corner and some blood. I don't know if he's alive or not, but I thought I'd give you a ring. I can't get past that. And one of the things, I often say with certain crimes, I'm okay, I can get around that. Maybe there's a reason. This one I'm not. I can't come up with a reason. Who would not go up to their loved one and find out what's wrong with them? This just doesn't look good to me. Doesn't look good to me. Okay. That's very nice. This is my favorite effort to date. Thank you, Pat. I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't had lots of good pressure. And because you all know more cases than I do, and I really didn't know this case. And when I looked at it originally, I'm like, but it's been a fascinating case. Really, really fascinating case. Let's see. Oh, really? Okay. I love Peter. He'll be with us on Tuesday. Peter's very, very excellent. And I'm very particular about who I recommend. I'm not saying you can't go. I believe in free speech. I believe in you make your own choices. You can go anywhere you want on the internet. I don't cancel people. But I also won't recommend them if I think I don't really like what they're teaching or not teaching or just whatever they're doing. But I do recommend certain ones, and Peter Hyatt will always recommend. And I think it's really important that you actually spend time with the different experts, people that are good. So you can get different viewpoints, especially ones who can explain things to you. So it's not just, I only pay attention to Pat Brown. No, I want you to go to Ken Maines. I want you to go to Peter Hyatt. And this, I gotta look at his name again, because I just Guy DeAndrea. Now he just did this thing. I don't think he has a channel. I wish he'd get one. He's obviously knows his homicide stuff. He worked as a prosecutor. He's really good, and he explained things so well. And he had technical problems, which I appreciated. But I really liked him. Really good. Let's see. Let me go down here. Oh, are you talking about the door? Yeah, one of the things, Kelly, I've learned how to break into a place and how to break out of one. I didn't know I'd know this, but there was this really cool thing on, when you have a bolt lock just straight across, how to lock that from the outside. And you wonder, generally speaking, why would you want to lock from the outside? Well, it was really interesting because this was actually done by an Indian guy, and he was talking about he's living in a hostel, with other students. And what happens is when you want to go out at night, you don't want to leave the door to the room unlocked. So this way, you can get out of the room and then lock the door for your roommates so they don't, nobody can get in. I'm like, that's a really good use, So I learned a lot from that one. So now I know how to break in and out of places. So, yeah, great stuff. Let's see. Let's see what SD says. Crazy that Ellie concluded this was a suicide. From diagrams of the stab wounds, it's almost impossible for her to stab herself in the back of the head in an upward manner. Okay, I did want to point out the upward manner. Thank you. Okay, so there was an upward, where it went up into the brain area. Okay, so it went upward. I'm going to say I can do it. So that's what I was pointing out before. People, they think you're sitting there like this and you can't get your hand around. And it really is. I mean, I couldn't do upward from here, and I can't even do this side of my head. But just turn your damn head. You can stab the crap out of yourself upward. So no, that doesn't actually. That's why I so believe in crime scene reenactment, and I've done a lot of them, and very weird things I've done for crime scene reenactment, because I want to know, can you do it? I don't want to assume. Never assume something can't be done. Look for all the ways, and you might prove you can't do it that way, and then you go, okay then, but you might prove you can do it that way, and so you want to make sure that you're being fair about that. But when you don't do the crime scene reenactment, you often haven't a clue whether it could be done or not done. So I think she could have made all those stab wounds. I do. I think he could also have faked breaking into the apartment as well. So you put everything together. The blood spatter pattern is more indicative of homicide to me. And the very deep wounds, the 4 deep ones, the ones that were, wait a minute, let me get this right. Okay, let me this way. Okay. The deep ones, the hesitation was not so much, but when you start getting into this level, okay, suicide, yes, but you had 4 like this. They're very deep, and it takes a lot for once you get a big one into you and you stab that hard, and then you had to pull the damn knife out, and at that point you can't feel really good. I'm going to say I feel like crap, And if you feel like crap, the question is, can you keep going? And if you're on certain drugs, you don't feel things and you can't think straight. But if you're not on drugs, and she wasn't, to be able to stab that deeply twice into your neck and head, and then turn around and stab that deeply into your abdomen, and then it's tricky. It's really tricky. And you would see under most conditions, here's what you would normally see. If you were going to kill yourself off. Okay, let's say you're going to do a throat cut. You will see hesitation wounds like this, because they're just light, and then you go for the big one time. Or if you're going to go for the stab wound to the chest, you make a few hesitation wounds and then the big one. Usually it's the one big one, not 4 big ones. And that makes me think homicide is far more likely. Okay, let's see. That's true, Martin. Fell on the knife is like she slipped down the stairs. Yeah. Oh, this is a good one. Oh, see, that's why I love having you guys here. Ryan says, I'm sorry. He says over and over, I'm sorry. Yes. And Peter will talk about that. He says that this is a leakage kind of thing where he's saying he's sorry because he really did do it, and he's apologizing for what he did. Not that, and to say he's sorry for no reason makes no sense. He also talks about ingratiating. Please, thank you so much. All this ingratiating stuff. When your loved one is dying on the floor, you don't give a shit what anybody else thinks about your language, quite frankly. Because you just want them saved. I mean, do you really care about the 911 operator's viewpoint of you? Not really. You just want your loved one saved. That's it. And so, oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Are you having a nice day? Not appropriate. I'm kind of weird. So, yeah, that's a good one, too. I would say, now, Steve, I can't remember whether I read this or didn't have the access to that. I would think if you're going to get rid of the fingerprints on the knife, okay, so you just stab somebody in the chest, I would just be doing this, and then I take her hand and go like this. She's only newly dead. You can move her hand like this and then just pull it off. So I'd be doing that. I'd make a good murderer. I've learned a lot. Oh, well, this is very nice, Marco. I've got the tech park fix. No, the tech went all to hell earlier on, Marco, and I still don't know what's wrong and why it did that and why nothing was working. And it was actually very, very frightening and scary. And weirdly enough, before my internet went down, I didn't know why, and it wouldn't connect, so I just did Wi-Fi. But apparently it also did connect. So, moments of glory. Oh, thank God. It is. I can't tell you how frustrating it is. I mean, and that's why I had to laugh when I'm watching somebody else going, I'm not really having a good time with the connection. I'm like, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Oh, yeah, Shelley says, oh, wow, a wealthy new wife. Wonder if he took out a life insurance policy on the new wife. Yeah, a lot of people have wondered how she married him, knowing what she knew. She seems very delighted with him. Let me point out the issue of situational crime, which is what people call crimes of passion, which I think is a ridiculous name. It's situational crimes. A person might not be a serial killer or a mass murderer, but they will take out somebody under a situation where they become aggrieved. Is that a word? I'm checking out my English. That's right? Okay. Or that the person gets in their way. So if you look at somebody like Drew Peterson, he knocked off one wife and then he knocked off another. He's not a serial killer. It's just that the first wife was causing him problems, so she sort of drowned in the bathtub. And the second wife, Stacy, started catching on to crap, so she went into some kind of container and disappeared. But he's not a serial killer. Then you get people who, especially with borderline personality disorder, who get very angry, like like a Scott Peterson. His wife she's pregnant, and now he's got to deal with he has a girlfriend, and the wife and the baby just kind of get in the way. So getting rid of them, hey, now I'm free. So and then he goes on with his life. So situational crimes can happen, or you've hurt my feelings and I can't live with it, and I don't want people to think that you dumped me. That can happen, and that's where you get the one-time crime. So it's possible he could remarry, and they could live together for the rest of their lives and nothing happens. And maybe he would still be who he is, but maybe she either doesn't see it or suffers through it, because somebody can you see this in divorces, where somebody spends years with somebody and then they get divorced, and then the new spouse comes in and the ex goes, good luck, and then the ex-spouse stays there for the new spouse, stays married for 20 years, and then the ex goes, dang, I wonder how come they're doing so well. And then one day the new spouse gets divorced, and then it's like, it took you just 20 years. So he could stay married. He could. Or he could just stay with her for 10 years and get divorced and not kill her. I'm glad you think so, Benny. Perfect explanation of the stabbing. It's a stab at it. But I wanted what frustrated me when I looked at the forensic psychologist report was Wecht and Lee. They didn't explain anything. So it's like, okay, that's your opinion, but why? I know it's your opinion and you're brilliant and all that crap, but why? You should always explain how you got that opinion. I feel very strongly about this for any kind of profiler or medical examiner or police, whoever. If you have an opinion, it should be based on something and you should be able to explain it. And if you can't, I don't know where your opinion came from. Even if it's right, I just don't know where it came from, and it's not very helpful. So I want to know why. And so that's why I tried to show you some different things so that you could at least, you don't have to agree with me or think it went down exactly that way. And, I haven't had months and months to look at things and to examine all of the stuff that I didn't get a chance to examine. So, I could change my mind on certain things, but I want you to at least understand the thinking process and what I came up with. Steve said, do you think the crime is premeditated? No, I don't. Because this bothers me right here. Premeditated crimes don't go like that usually. So there's usually something that happened prior to that moment. It doesn't look like premeditated suicide either. It looks like something that happened in the spur of the moment. Either something went wrong and it was terrible and he walked out the door and she went back and said, screw you, and came back and then grabbed the knife and killed herself. Or she went to the kitchen and he followed her in and she says, well, darn it all, and he grabbed the knife and he started stabbing her. Take your pick. But I'm going to say it leans kind of toward the homicide end of things. Let's see. Well, this is the problem, Barbara. She said, you say, I don't know how they didn't investigate the boyfriend. Did someone see him at the time of her death at the gym, or are there any eyewitnesses? No. He left the place and he came back. I mean, there's proof that he went to the gym, I think, from key cards and stuff. But she didn't die necessarily during the time he was at the gym. So there's a time of death issue here. So, but if if you're only gone a short period of time, it's hard to tell exactly when she died. By the time they come, they can guess at it. So I don't know why they never investigated him. I think it was a major oversight, shall we say. A major oversight. So, let's see. Well, this is a simple point. If not the boyfriend, then who? Personally, my opinion, it's not a suicide but a murder. Well, there's, again, only two players. It's either a suicide by her hand or it's a murder by his hand. That's it. There was nobody else had entrance to that apartment. It's one or the other. She committed suicide. He murdered her. That's it. There's only two suspects in this case. Are we sure she was dead at the time of the 911 call? Well, I would say chances are pretty good. I think that's why he stayed away for a long enough time. I think by the time he if he committed the crime and put the knife through her heart, I think he was pretty sure she was dead before he left the apartment. But the fact is, he didn't check to see if she was dead before he made the 911 call. And that's the real important part. That's terrible. Lan, that's so mean. Hope no one bought his new wife knives for a wedding gift. Really dull ones. Don't bring me any sharp ones. I'll do with the cheap dull ones from Walmart. Oh my God. No, that's very true. A singer here committed suicide from stabbing himself in the stomach, from what I've read in the news. Yeah, I mean, that can happen. That's why I pointed out these other pictures that show, you can have these stab wounds. It can happen. So that's why you can't just jump to a conclusion either direction. It's really important. Oh, I want to mention this. Really? Cutco knives can cut through anything. I used mine on horse leads and even hooves. Woo, okay, then I take that back. The issue about the clothing. It has been pointed out that suicides don't usually stab through their clothing. And she had a zipped up shirt. And I looked into that heavily because, and I found out that, interesting enough, there's a pretty high percentage that do. So it wasn't as useful as I thought, because that's just one of these things people say, and I'm like, did you look at the latest research? And the latest research really doesn't support that that's particularly true. So Gretchen says, please don't hurt yourself, Pat. You're my favorite Sunday activity. I'll try not to. I didn't use my Japanese knife, you see. But this could still do damage if I worked at it. No, I'm not suicidal. I've never been suicidal. I'm one of these people that'll plow through pretty much anything. And I'm like, I never feel sorry for myself in the sense that I'm like, I don't deserve this. I can't deal with this. I'm usually like, okay, well, that sucks. Okay, let me figure out what I'm going to do next, because life is that way. Life is unpredictable, and I just look for the next thing that I feel like I can do something useful in life. And it might be something that isn't, huge or anything, but something that can be done. And so I try not to feel, all sorry for myself. But I know people can, really get to the point where they just can't handle things, and they just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's why they commit suicide. Very, very sad. This is interesting. Lisa says, I pictured him stabbing her back first, and then she suddenly turned around to defend herself, and then he got her front. I'm trying to think. It's possible, but I don't know how. how movable she was at that point, but she might have turned around, and he started to do that. Maybe she slid down and then he finished her off. So yeah, it's very possible. I mean, these are one of these things that if you have the time and the energy, you can go through all the different scenarios of how it could actually play out. And if you have good information and you get good pictures, you can start matching, whether this could have happened. And did the hand hit, see that? Did the hand hit here and slide down? You can literally look closely. Oh, I have a great movie for you. Okay, so there's this movie called Curdled. It's made by somebody who is a student of Quentin Tarantino. Anyway, this woman, she lives in Mexico, and she sees this horrible thing happen, and she becomes obsessed with murder. And so when she moves to the United States, she gets a job as a cleanup person at murder scenes, one of those people. And it's really, I love that movie, and I know, I'm like, okay, I can totally relate. So what happens is she'd go to the murder scene, and she would look at how it all went down, and she would do that. She'd lay on the counter and go, oh, and then her hand went here, and then she went, and she'd go through, like almost a dance through all the different blood spatter patterns and blood. And it was, I really, it was kind of a sick movie, but I really enjoyed it. And so it's called Curdled, and it's, I think it's a student of Tarantino. I love the movie, but maybe just me. But it so relates to doing crime scene reenactment. It's like really good. So, let's see. Yes, and this is true. Well, this is true and not true. Ellen allegedly, there you go, the alleged, searched suicide methods on her laptop. Yes, that in the beginning they said there was no proof anything on her laptop that referred to suicide. That was said originally. Then later on they said there was. I don't quite get it. I tried to look up the ones I saw listed. There was a lot of questions that were in the computer search for like reactions off of Zoloft. If you take these different types of medications, what kind of side effects do they have? And then there was a search for suicide and painless suicide. That was there. And again, that's what, I don't know if that's true because there's a contradictory information, but that's one reason this police may have said, oh, see, she looked up suicide and then she did it. So, but again, even if you looked up suicide, it doesn't mean you committed suicide. It could mean that you thought about it and then somebody suicided you, because maybe the reason you were so depressed was because you were having a rougher relationship, and before you got a chance to commit suicide, you confronted the person or whatever, and they did you in. So I do think there were problems. The moving back to stay with mom before the wedding just seemed a little off to me. Are those hair swipes in the cabinet on the right? That's too low if she did it herself. I don't know what that is. And, that's the, I don't have it's not good enough. The pictures aren't good enough for me to even suppose anything. I can see the drops that are straight down. Clearly she bled out like right in that spot right here. I don't know what this is. It could be the back of a hand. It could be where her head was when she was slumped in the corner, which she supposedly was. I think her feet, wait a minute, it's backwards again. Maybe her feet were out here, and then she's slumped here, and then her head is maybe up in this corner, and she might have slumped on there. I don't know, because I can't tell from the pictures, unfortunately. Let's see. And I'm going to think about it. Yeah, this is very possible. She wanted to go back home, but was embarrassed to tell her parents she had made a mistake with her boyfriend. Yeah, embarrassment is a big thing. People don't think that that's, they don't want to tell the truth. Even to the therapist, maybe they don't want to tell the truth. And I'll admit a funny thing. I was actually, I was engaged, and my fiancé and I were living in an apartment. My father gave us furniture for the apartment, and I remember that we had had sort of a date plan for the wedding, and we had this big fat argument. And I'm sitting there going, I think I should dump you. And then I'm thinking, well, how am I going to return the furniture to my father? I mean, he gave us his furniture. I can't dump him because of the furniture. So we got married. So, I was 23 when I got married. So I was embarrassed to, I'm not saying it was a bad idea that I went through with the marriage. I'm just saying at that moment in time, I was embarrassed to admit to my father that I needed to return the furniture if I were not going to get married to him. So, sometimes we do these things because we just don't want to admit, oh man, I screwed that up. Couldn't. Oh, that was a good question. I want to go back up here. Where is it? That's an interesting point. There may have been pressure on her to get married at 27. Yeah, biological clock thing. And you just think you're never going to meet anybody else. It's like you've already found somebody, and you finally say, okay, I can't go for perfect, because perfect doesn't exist. So even if things are kind of an issue right now, I just want to go through with it and have my babies, Let's see. Yeah, and that's a good possibility. He gave her the anxiety, and it's hard to know. I don't know what I feel like she never told the psychiatrist in those 2 sessions or whatever she had the proper truth on that. I just find it really hard to believe that just the stress of the work and upcoming wedding would cause her to be that depressed and need medication to the point where she said, I can't live like this anymore. So we're talking about some severe depression. We're not just talking, I'm anxious. She felt like she was falling apart. Why? Why when you're about to marry your love? Why? And you supposedly liked your job. Why? I mean, it's pretty extreme. So I think there was a lot more going on than we have any clue. I think the motive was that she didn't want to marry him anymore, and maybe couldn't take that she left him. That may be true. I don't know if anybody knew about any abuse. I don't know if we have proof of that, but the most dangerous time for a woman is when she wants to leave the guy that she's been with. That's a very dangerous time. And this is actually very true. It is an unlikely method of suicide. It is. It's for women especially. For men, it's a bigger number of men will do this. As I said, first of all, somebody who's very psychotic, schizophrenia to the point of having really psychotic episode. Men are next, but females are very low on that for stabbing themselves. They are, unless they are psychotic at the time. Very, very low on that. They usually do some softer method of killing themselves. This is true. Or at least just cut your wrist and sit in a bathtub thing, you know what I mean? But rarely do they stab themselves 20 times. It is very unusual if it's true. So, but you keep in mind, you can say, okay, she could be the one off, you know what I mean? So, the anomaly. And so you don't want to immediately say, oh, it couldn't be. So they should do their review of whether this was a suicide. But on the other hand, they should have done their investigation as a homicide. Just put undetermined on her death certificate and move on and try to figure out what really happened and before you blow it. And that didn't quite happen, which is a real shame. So this is a good group here tonight, I have to say, Lisa. This is quite a nice group here tonight, so I'm really appreciative of this. And I do hope that in the future, I say this is going to be a Patreon only live session, but this is the way I like it, and it has been pretty pleasant. I've knocked off a few people that were some bots that came in. Luckily, I don't see any real agenda people here tonight, but each time I do it, you just never know who's going to come in and make life really, really, really tough. So so starting next Sunday, because I don't have a Friday one this week, Sunday this week, and then next week will be Friday and Sunday. So please, if you haven't, just join Patreon. It's at the third tier. It's $5 a month. Supports this channel, which really is needed, and for that you can continue to come, and we won't have problems with it very often with anybody concerning, because it will be people who truly care about the channel, really want to learn, really want to discuss, and aren't just people coming in to cause trouble. And so it'll be hopefully always pleasant like this, and that's my goal, because as the channel does get a little bigger, and I do need it to be bigger to survive, you get more and more chance of this happening unless you put some kind of containment on it. And so that's what I've chosen to do, so that we have, people who care and really want to come and learn and have a good attitude. So I think it's going to be worth it in the long run. So, that's a good point. I like this one. I don't think she would do this to her parents. That's always a really interesting thing. She was an only child to her parents, and it would be obviously devastating, and it was devastating to the parents. It seemed a pretty good relationship with her mother. I tend to think she wouldn't go that route. And I've always, this is the one thing about suicide, which has always bugged me to a great extent, is that the fact that when you commit suicide, you destroy everybody else's life with yours. I think that sometimes there's a rage involved in suicide, or nobody matters any. Maybe I matter only and you don't, or I can't even see you as mattering. I wouldn't get into a huge discussion on that, but it always bothered me for that reason, because if I kill myself tonight, my children have to live with it. My granddaughter has to live with it. My sisters have to live with it. My friends have to live with it. It's like a cruel and unusual punishment. I couldn't do that to people. I get it if I'm 95 years old and I've got terminal cancer and I'm in agonizing pain. I think then you go, okay. But it's just, they say suicide is really murder, and it really is. So when you murder yourself, you're hurting everybody else around you. So I always point that out, because I think I think people need to really understand what they're doing to other people as well. And also the fact, which always drives me nuts, when people do commit suicide, is a lot of times it's like, if you'd only hung on, next year might have been the best year ever, I mean, I've had some low times in my life where things sucked, but then a year or two later, I'm like, dang, things are really great. I mean, matter of fact, maybe because of the horrible times I had, my times are even better now, So I'm always like, hang in, because you never know what's around the corner, With the coronavirus, I mean, I started YouTube during coronavirus because, Liz encouraged me to do it, and I'm like, YouTube? I never crossed my mind. YouTube? And here I am, a year later. It's almost a year anniversary now, and, who would have I didn't think I was going to do anything on YouTube. But now I'm here, and this is really cool, and so coronavirus, crappy as it was, has led me to this. So, I just hang in. If you're feeling depressed, hang in. Life is not always, it can come back, So let me see if I have anything else here. Cheryl says, could she have been shopping at the counter and he stabbed her from behind in the neck? That's what I think. And she was the void. Well, yeah, she would be the void. Yeah, she would be the void. Yes, this direction, correct. This is why I thought it was weird, because usually she was stabbing herself in the neck with the old knife, and then she could have, she like this, for example, she's stabbing, you see like blood going out. But yeah, if he's behind her and he's stabbing her, the blood can't go forward, and also if he's got himself there, he's the void too. So it goes both directions. But it's hard to know because I can't see the crime scene photos very well. I don't believe she had a history of self-harm, as far as I know. Dr. West stated that he could not recall any suicide with the type and location of the stab wounds. They're pretty weird. I mean, again, she could be a one-off and an anomaly, and I don't know what he's seen too. But yeah, I'm thinking it's pretty weird. So. Thank you very much, Chris. You're very nice. This will probably be my last super sticker thing, because I'm not going to do super sticker if I do these, and these are they're going to be not public during the live part of it. They're unlisted. So what happens is I send out the link to everybody who's the $5 and above patrons, and I send the link out, and then every week I send the links out, and you just go to this spot, and it looks just like now, but it's not public, so there will be no more super stickers, and then after the show it'll just go public, but I do really appreciate that so much. So I'm hoping that in the long run As much as I appreciate the super stickers because they're helping keep the channel going, more people will join Patreon for a more secure setting and also support the channel on a regular basis so that I don't have to go away and get a regular, go back to a full-time job. Outside of this, I want this to be the full-time job. But thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. This was a really interesting crime to do. Let's see. Chi-Kun says, when my sister died of cancer after a month of after a month of not eating and sleeping, just a small meal and 2 hours a night, I became suddenly down so deep I thought it couldn't come back. Yet here you are, because life is like that. We lose people, and it's devastating to us. But there are other people who are there for us, and there are other people who we can be with. And so, I'm glad you're here. That's all I can say. I'm glad you're here because, we like you being here, So, but yeah, I know I have a very, very dear sisters, and I can't imagine my life without them. But, if one of us is, or there's three of us, so, so somewhere along the way, one of us is going to, check out before the others, and then the other two will have to survive it, and hopefully they'll have good people around them and good things to do, and know that much as they miss me, if it's me, or much as I'll miss them, there's, other things to do. So, you're off to bed. What time is it where you're at? Thank you very much, Gretchen. Enjoyed having you here. That's it. Shelley says that's a heavy butcher block. It appears to be. It could be a cheap butcher block. There are light kind of crappy butcher blocks which fall over more easily, but that's something, again, as an investigator, I would want to know how heavy is that sucker. So when I'm grabbing a knife, should it just fall over just because I pulled the dang knife out, or is it because I really yanked the knife out? And that would be interesting to know. And if it's a really heavy one, that's even more telling. So again, part of an investigation done properly, we would learn that, and we just don't know. So, well, that's a good point. I can't believe she just stood there in the kitchen and did this to herself. I would have just taken the 20 anxiety pills. There are definitely easier, simpler ways to do yourself in than this pain. But, we have to understand one thing. There are people who cut themselves because they like the pain, because the physical pain is better than the emotional pain. That's why they're cutters. There are also, when you punch you shouldn't know this, but when you punch your fist through a wall, why do you do that when you know it's going to hurt the living hell out of your fist? It's because somehow the rage for hitting something and hurting yourself actually is for people, it makes them feel good in a weird way, and maybe later they're not so thrilled when they have to go get hands messed up. So people sometimes do those things, and then under certain drugs, you say your brain is on such speed, so a high level that you just feel the energy, you don't feel the pain. So that can happen then. But she wasn't on any drugs like that, so there we go. Oh, thank you so much, Tikkun. I appreciate it. Keep this live for one more week at least, but I do hope everybody's there on Patreon so I can see you all again. It will be just awesome. Again, just the lowest level is just for being live is just $5 a month. It's pretty low, and it will keep this way it is today. Has been a really nice chat, and I just want to keep it that way and keep out the haters and all those other really annoying people, because it really does mess things up. Yes, Sailor's correct. Aren't fingerprints useless anyway because they're both living there anyway? Yes, unless the fingerprints were in places or in blood that they shouldn't be, then that would be interesting. But yes, this is one of the problems when you have that. It's just it could be a sort of Freudian slip. Yeah, the sorry, it could be. Let's see. I don't believe there was, I don't know of any insurance policy. I don't. Roid rage, I'm going to say that dude doesn't look like he's on roids. He doesn't, so I don't, but it's a question. Now, you can ask this question: did he have to go in and did he get blood samples taken to see if he was on any drugs? No, because they didn't suspect him of anything. There you go. Yeah. Um, yes, this is what's going on. Ellen's parents have filed a civil suit in an effort to change the death from suicide to homicide, and it just failed in Pennsylvania. They just refused. Let me see if I can pull it up for you, as a matter of fact, because I kept it here. It is, yeah, Philadelphia. Just this came out February 17th, so that was 10 days ago. It says, Eyewitness News has exclusively learned that the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office has finished reviewing the mysterious death of Ellen Greenberg. They previously reviewed the case in 2019, and they determined then that the death was a suicide. The office has just reaffirmed that her death was a suicide. The file is officially closed. So there you go. I don't know if they're ever going to be able to get that actually reopened. I mean, because, they've closed it, and they've made the determinations, and it sucks. And a lot of the investigation can't even be done anymore. So there you go. It's a kind of messed up. Yeah. And this is a good point. Tikkun says some women are so deep in blind love with a narcissist that they think he's going to change. Yeah. They suffer so long for nothing after they are broken forever sometimes. That is very true. And it's true for men with females too. They marry this woman and, whatever, and it doesn't go any better. Goes with any kind of long-term relationship, that there are two significant others together, and and you keep thinking this person becomes important to you, even in a short term. When people come into our lives and we spend time with them, they become part of us. And if we had good times with them, we just don't want to. We just can't imagine them not being there. So we start making excuses for the behaviors and thinking something will get better. And we're all kind of we tend toward that because we want things to work out. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's never going to work out with a person that's truly has a personality disorder. It gets really bad. Could he have been getting the knife and she tried to stop and the block fell over? Yeah, that could be. That's another good point. Yeah, Doreen, that could have been happening. He could have grabbed, and she says, "I'm going to get you," or "I'm going to kill you," and he grabbed for the knife, and she grabbed for his hand and knocked the block over. Yeah, could have happened. I wish we had a videotape. We don't. So, but it doesn't seem that in a suicide that block should be falling over. It's just one of those things. It could have happened, but it's just not so strong. Why didn't he replace the block of knives? Well, that's a good question. Maybe his hands were bloodied. Maybe. He might not even have noticed it or thought it was important. Because he's looking at his dead fiancé with a knife in her chest if he did it, and he may not have paid it much attention. He might have looked for any blood that he should have cleaned up a little bit. If it's something he thought would incriminate him, maybe, but I don't know. Kaibale. Yeah. Oh, now it's a. So I call you a Dara here, but you just let the cat out of the bag. But yes, I'm glad you're here. It's awesome. Adara. I like that name. I wonder where you get it from. That's great. And I'm glad you're on Patreon now, the tier 3, so you can be here every week. It's going to be grand. And Kelly says, most often in crises, we are so panicked to get help that we spew everything out, and only then does the emotional register with us. Red flags throughout his 911 call. Yeah, it's a very strange call. And, again, we do weird things, like when he chuckled about the knife in her chest. If part of me went, I could almost imagine myself doing that, because I have a bad tendency to laugh at, certain serious times sometimes, and it's kind of like you get almost hysterical. That's why people laugh at funerals. They just can't stop laughing, and it just could be that he could have been that moment where it struck him funny in a horrible way. So again, one thing you have to make sure that's totality. It's not one thing in the 911 call that's concerning. It's the whole 911 call, and most importantly, that he never checked her before the 911 call. Can't get past it. That's the biggie. That's the biggie for me. Just have a problem with that. Have a problem with that and that stupid block. Those two things bother me the most. So they just get me. Okay, let's see. That is, as far as I know, that is blood. That's where she was sitting. Let's see. Interesting. The police stated they lived in a very clean apartment. Yeah. Did anybody ever see the Bette Midler show? I can't remember the name of it now, but anyway, Bette and some friend. A friend says, they go to her apartment, and they go into her apartment, the place is wrecked, and the friend goes, oh my God, I've been robbed. And she goes, all these things, they've taken these things, they've thrown all the drawers on the ground and everything. And she goes, oh my God, I know what they're after, something they had that they shouldn't have had, And so let's go to your apartment, Bette, and see if they've gone there. And they walk into Bette's apartment, and it's a complete disaster. And the friend goes, oh my God, they've been here too. And Bette goes, no, they haven't. That cracked me up. I'm like, so sometimes this is actually true. I've actually looked at some crime scene photos, and I'm like, you make it really difficult when your place is such a mess that you can't tell what the killer did and what was just already a big fat mess. It's like, oh look, the sheets are pulled off the bed and they're on the floor. Maybe it's because they just were too lazy to make the dang bed. Maybe the drawers were half open, but that's because they never closed them. So it's like, so if you're a real messy person, you're screwing up the crime scene for the investigators. So if you want good investigation done on your murder, clean up your house. Oh God. All right. Let's see. Hello. I'm so glad you're here. I'm probably at the wrong place in the video. Oh, yeah, it's kind of late, but okay. If she looked up painless suicide, would stabbing herself be on that list? Probably not. I mean, obviously, if you're looking for painless, you don't like pain. So you would think that's a little strange. Yeah. That's a good point. Doreen says, it just occurred to me, this is a strange way to kill someone if you think you're getting away with it because it would be ruled a suicide. I guess he just got lucky. Yeah, here's the thing. A lot of times when killing comes after in a rage, right? The idea isn't how am I going to cover this up, because it's not a premeditated murder. So if you're like, I got to get rid of my fiancé, how can I do it? Then it's a big, then you might plan something very clever, or at least smarter. But if you do something in a rage, then you got a problem, because, oh man, now she's on the floor and there's blood around her and a knife in her chest, which I put there. What do I do? Oh, let me think. I'll wipe off my fingerprints. Maybe I can clean up a little bit. I'll break the door so it looks like when I come back that I broke the door down, and I'll go away for a little while so she can commit suicide, and then I'll call the police and say, this is what I found when I walked in, which bothers me too, because he didn't walk in, he broke in. He's very calm, but if you've done that, he probably did walk in, because he didn't have to break anything, he just opened up the door and walked in. So that's a little leakage. So yeah, that's getting lucky, you betcha. I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes people do get really lucky. So if this was truly a homicide, dude lucked out. He really did. No question about it. Let's see. The author, you want to ask about this? This book is Bloodstain Pattern Analysis, and they are, who are they? Tom Bevel and Ross Gardner. Tom Bevel and Ross Gardner. And it is really, really good. There's lots of, they do lots of nice pictures in here. They're all black and white, but they're very good. And no, they're not all black and white. Okay, they're not. But it's just a really well done book. Covers pretty much everything. I mean, it's a thorough text, but a readable text. And so, yes, Tom Reed and Ross Gardner. Maybe I'll try to link that one below when I finish the show. So, because it is very good. Let's see. Yeah, this is I brought this up before. She told her mother, I can't live this way anymore. Now, it seems like if you're going to say she's suicidal, she's meeting her emotional state of, her anxiety from whatever her anxiety is caused by. But she may have been saying, I can't live this way anymore in this house with him. I can't. But then she didn't say any more about it, so we just don't know. So, yeah, we can presume, but we don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Dara says, did she have 20 stab wounds, which is overkill? It is a lot of killing, yes, no pun intended, for suicide. Few who attempt suicide by self-harm will stab themselves, let alone that many times. This is true. Say most of the time they don't choose knives unless you're, again, psychotic, male, and on bath salts. So you do choose a calmer method, or if you cut your wrist, that's as much as you'll do. Sometimes people will stab themselves through the heart, and they will have some marks, or they'll cut their throat like this, and they'll have some hesitation marks. They usually don't go, I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to do it here. It's pretty rare. So, yeah, pretty rare. Let's see. This is true. Men tend to use more violent means of suicide, where women usually use less violent means. Usually. That is true. But, again, whenever you're doing an investigation, you don't want to say 80% of this would be happening from men, so we're not going to investigate the 20%. Or 95% would be men, but we're going to ignore the 5% that could be women. You want to make sure that you come to the scene very objective, and don't bring all your, one of the problems I've often seen is the problem of doing what's called inductive kind of profiling, where you bring in your statistics. The statistics say this would be a male. The statistics say this would be whatever. No, you don't know where the outlier is in those statistics, and a lot of times your statistics are crap. They're based on somebody's research that is too old, or it was poorly done, or whatever. So never use statistics for the actual profiling and crime scene analysis. You can use statistics to just understand things in general. So I'm not opposed to realizing that the statistics do tend to support that males are more likely to commit this kind of a crime. People who have schizophrenia, very psychotic, commit this kind of crime against themselves as suicide. But I will not say absolutely and then rule out any other possibility. I want to stay objective as long as I can. Before, if I were working on this case with the police, I would want to go through all of that. I would want to look at every bit of evidence, and then I would want to give them all my determinations based on evidence and say, here's where I've come to. Read through this, understand why I'm coming to these conclusions. But it's not, again, it's not locked down. You don't want to say, the profiler said this, so now we're just going to do whatever she says. No, it's just to help you then determine where to go with the investigation. Maybe a better direction, or maybe not to overlook something. So it's a methodology of handling an investigation, hopefully in the best way possible. I wish that original police in this investigation had done so, and I hope that some of my future training will do that. Let's see, anything left here? Benny says, could the minor stab wounds be when he was fixating her arms, he would taunt her with minor stabs to show her what was to come? I would do that if I was evil. How do you think this way, Benny? And want to teach her a lesson. Possible. Since it's believed that this happened before this happened, he could say, stop moving, stop moving, stop moving. I'm going to hurt you unless you stop moving. He could have said that. Not so much taunting or whatever. He could have said, stop moving. Maybe, for example, I'm just going to make up a scenario. She starts shrieking at him, and she's angry. She's like, I'm not going to marry you, you're a jerk. And she turns away from him, and he grabs her, and then she starts going, let me go. And he goes, calm down, I'll hurt you. And he goes like this a few times, and then she calms down, and it kills her. I don't know, we aren't there. And so we can come up with lots of possibilities. The most important thing is to come up with the most important conclusions one can make so that investigation would go in the right direction. So, oh, thank you, Barbara. I watched you before when you came out on TV. Yeah, I think you're on the Nancy Grace Show. I was on the Nancy Grace Show for at least a decade, if not more. I did usually a show 2 or 3 times a week, yeah. And it was an interesting ride, because one thing people have always asked me this. They go, well, how did you manage to not have Nancy, get in your face and say things? And I'm like, Nancy never did that with me, because she knew, I'm like, I'll come on your show, I'm going to tell it the way I see it, and I'm never going to back down. And I was surprised I stayed on her show so long. She was very, very respectful of me. I think she knew I was not very tolerant of that kind of stuff. So some guests she could play around with a lot, and it made good TV. But she would come to me and sometimes she's like, so Pat. So that's why I stayed on her show so long. But it was fun. But I was on pretty much all the major channels. But I've left TV, and here is actually so much better, because I get to actually say what I want to say, and I don't have a time bite like this. And as soon as I speak, they're like, okay, thank you, Pat. You're like, I didn't finish. But here, I get to say what I come here to say. I get to also communicate with people, which I don't get to do on the show. And then even in the comments later, below, when you can put comments down there, I read the comments as much as I can, and try to respond if I think they're worthwhile responding to, and continue the conversation. So that's a nice educational methodology, which you just don't get a lot of times on TV. It's so edited, and there's so much agendas and stuff that this is truly freeing. So I'm glad I'm here. But thank you very much. Let's see. This is true. They don't tend to think about how suicide may affect others, and they're too much wrapped up in their emotional state. Yes, this is true, and it behooves us, really, to when we're raising children and when we're taking care of ourselves, to try not to be too narcissistic about what we deserve in life. I see so many people say, you deserve love. No, you actually don't. You're just lucky if you get it. You don't really deserve a whole heck of a lot. We're just here, and we have to work hard to get love, to get in a relationship where we have a good relationship. We have to work hard to keep our jobs, and things will work, and then they come with rewards. But people don't necessarily hand you crap on a silver platter, and sometimes we're born with better luck, less luck. Sometimes we're born with great luck, and then we get in a car accident and have no legs. It's life, and we have to work on our own attitudes toward living life, and just being thankful that we have a life, that we can have a chance to do many things, and here we are. So anyway, let's see. But unfortunately, I want to point this out, which is truth. She had a great job. She did, in her future. She's a very beautiful girl. She had lots of friends. She had a great job in future. True, loving parents. Just an only child. She was just tired of him, and like she said, she couldn't take living like this anymore. And one of the saddest things, even I think more sad than suicide, in my opinion, is that you aren't tired of life. You're just tired of your situation, and then somebody takes you out. That you get murdered for being in a situation that turns out to be a bad situation, and you had this whole lifetime ahead. This is what her parents think. Even though she was depressed or anxious at that time, she had her whole life ahead of her, and when she got over this whatever hump this was, this little speed bump, she would have gone on. She was only 27, but instead she got murdered, and that's pretty sad, because she never got the option to live the rest of her life out, just because if she was murdered, she unfortunately hooked up with the wrong guy. I mean, generally speaking, we hook up with people that maybe don't turn out well, but they don't usually kill us. You know what I mean? We go, well, that sucked, and we have a bad, end of relationship. We get divorced or whatever, and then we get another chance. And but if you hook up with the wrong person, you might not get the second chance. That's really, really sad. So, okay, Doreen, yes, no, the link, when this goes to the Patreon people for live only next week, what I do is I send out a notification of the show coming up. This is a show coming up, and here is the link to the show. And it goes through Patreon, and then it goes to your email. So you'll get that link in your email, and then you just click on it and come here just like you did today. And it works pretty well because everybody who's been doing Hangout, a lot of people here have been doing Hangouts, and they have no trouble getting in. And here's one real advantage, that like today when things looked like they were really going south really badly with the electronics, what I always tell you when you're on Patreon, here's the link. But if something goes wrong, just look at your email, you'll get another link. In other words, if it all crashes and burns, I'll say, give me 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, and I'll reset up the show, and let's say part 2, and I'll just send you another link and you can come back in. Whereas when I'm doing it totally public, if it goes down, it's gone. And I'm like, bye, sorry about this. And I can't even say anything, it's just over. And so, yeah, so you'll get it through your email, and you'll get the show. I'll send you I'll be doing this. Send you the picture of the show, just like you'd see on YouTube, with a link below it, and then you just click in, and it's just very simple. And then after the show finishes, I just go back to StreamYard, which is what I use, and I go make public. Actually, I go to YouTube and I just say make public, and it just goes from that to public and in a second, and then you can come back on, and you'll see it pop up on YouTube then, and actually you might see it anyway on YouTube. It's just other people won't. And then you can go to comments below and make some more comments, and I'll be there and I'll stick around just so in case I don't get it done during the show, I can do it afterwards. So yeah, you'll get a link. So let's see. Let's see. That's interesting. Madara says, self-injury via cutting doesn't usually turn into a suicide, but even when it doesn't usually involve more than a few wounds. That is correct. I mean, that's a lot of wounds. I mean, it's hard to look at this case and go, she stabbed herself 20 times without doing bath salts. I mean, there are people who cut their entire faces off and stab themselves 40 times when they're under the influence of something where they don't feel their body anymore, and they're kind of, out to lunch. But if you're like, she didn't have that in her body, so every single one of those stabs would have been horrific. You know what I mean? I can't imagine that. Oh, that's very nice, Lisa. I've recently jumped to the VIP tour, and if you go so there's one is the first tier is just thank you for sending $1 a month to support the channel, and I'm hoping 1,000 people do that to support the channel. Then there's a $3, and if you're at $3, you can also join the Patreon chats, which getting them going, and just so you can talk to each other without me necessarily paying attention. And I might jump in occasionally, but just between you guys mostly. And then 3 is just coming. You can come to the lives. On 4, you can also come to the Hangouts every week. There's one Hangout a week where I do a lot of news and smaller bits about cases, and you can ask questions. And then the VIP one, I'm also going to add 2 times a month where you can call. I'm going to have a call-in. I have to figure out how to do it. It should be this week. I got to figure it out how you call in, and then we can actually hear your voices, and it will be a totally unplanned thing where we just hang out and talk. But thank you very much. As you can email Pat anytime, and she's wonderfully engaging and receptive. Thank you very much. That's why, again, I like to have a really good group rather than everybody and their uncle, just because it gets too out of hand. So I'm really appreciative of having a stronger base that I can communicate with, and I learn from you, and hopefully you learn from me. So yeah, so thank you. Oh, Kelly, I'm in the middle of divorcing a narcissist after 20 years, so all my money is going to my attorney. Yeah, boy, You know what happened when I got divorced? I just said I couldn't even. I didn't even pay an attorney. I just took the loss and walked away. But but when I'm done, oh my God, you'll never be done. I'll join as a Patreon. It's only $5 a month. Don't go to Starbucks and buy their burnt coffee. That's $5 right there. This is $5 a month, and we can hang out so many hours instead of 10 minutes. So. Oh my God. But I'm glad you're getting out of the marriage. Good move. Yes, this is Lisa. Lisa's putting this up. We're developing the chat section of Pat's Patreon channel. Please come and join us. And forward topics you want to discuss to Pat, and she'll post them to get us started. Yeah, because I think it has I'm still learning how the whole thing works, so I really don't know. Every day I learn something more, and maybe a year from now I'll just be, just so proficient, but now I'm kind of like a kindergartner. And so, yeah, so I think what happens at the moment is that I have to put the post up for the group, but if you mail me what you want to talk about, then I'll just say, this is the discussion, and I'll just hit the button and it'll come up, and then everybody sees it, and you can all hang out and talk. And again, because it's a smaller group, then you would have, like in the comment section below, where things can, I've seen some channels, and all you get is a whole bunch of people being really nasty and vicious and stuff. And so I want Patreon to not be that. I want the chat rooms not to be that. In the comments below, I do a lot of blocking of people. I do. They come in, they say rude things, and I block them, and I block them, and I block them, and I block them. And I do that to keep the comment area as nice as I can. But it's always going to be harder work to do that than to have a group at Patreon who actually like the channel and are coming because they like the channel, whereas people coming in to sometimes the comment section could care less about me or the channel. They just want to cause trouble. Or coming into the chat room when it's open, they just come to cause trouble. So, yeah. So, yes, it'll be that nice chat. But you can all hang out. This is really cool. I did not know she did this. Why would she fill up her car with gas if she was planning to end her life? I did not know she did that. Interesting. That's a good question. I mean, people can change their minds. I mean, people do stuff, they go through the motions, kind of in a fog, and like, okay, and then they finally say, okay, that's it. So sometimes that can be a little deceptive. It can be a little deceptive, but we don't know. And even people who think they know the person, a lot of times that's the problem when you talk to friends and family. They'll tell you stuff, oh, that person would never do that, and you're like, yeah, they would. A lot of times we don't know each other as much as we think we do. Oh, oops. That's a good point. That's kind of a weird thing. Let's see, I just lost that. A Hebrew name. What's a Hebrew name? Oh, Adara? Is Adara a Hebrew name? Really? Ah, okay. That's what I'm going to have to look that up now. Very cool. Let me see what we got left here. Let's see. Yeah, this is a good point. So Sailor Moon says, my father is epileptic, and once he got a seizure and lost consciousness and hit his hand. Or his hand or head. My mom was horrified with me as I was laughing the whole time, but it was nerves. Yeah, that really can happen. I mean, and that's why I don't overjudge people when they go into the giggles or just become hysterical sounding, because it does happen. I mean, it's nerves. It's just getting so nervous that you just start doing, things just, you can't stop laughing. That's why I say people at funerals, that's why I remember, I don't know if it's a show or something, I remember seeing this, they were all sitting in the front row, and a loved one was in the casket, and I think the preacher said something like, and now let's stand upon our feet, and one of the persons leaned over to the other and said, what else are we going to stand upon? And then they all just burst out laughing and couldn't control themselves from that moment on, because it struck them as so funny. But it's like when you're a teen, you laugh at things ridiculous, that you later when you're older, you're like that. I wouldn't have laughed like that, but as a teen, you laugh like crazy. So it's kind of like that. So yeah, I'll give him a small break on that one. Let's see. Yes. Oh yes, it is. The 911 call is available to hear. It is. You can just go to YouTube and put in Ellen Greenberg 911 call. It'll show up. I didn't play it because I've just run into problems with copyright issues, and when you do live shows and you get a copyright claim against you or a strike against you, you can lose your whole channel. It gets really nasty, and so sometimes I just don't know if there's a copyright on something. So if you do if you're doing like a video and you do it, and before you put it up, before you put the video public. You can just do a video and you can run it through the check to see if there's copyright issues. And then when there's none, you put it up. But when you're doing it live, you can't do that before. So you put your live up and all of a sudden it comes back and says, you have copyright strike against you or something, and then and it's a disaster. And so I just, generally speaking, just decided after I got hit with a couple of those not to take the chance anymore, because I don't want to lose the channel over copyright issues. So that's why I read it. And besides which, it took a long time to listen to it, so I thought I could just do it from the print. But you can listen to it on YouTube, for sure. Let's see. Now, this is, must have a personality defect if he murdered Ellen and started a new relationship afresh. Well, yeah, I mean, if he murdered her, he would have a severe problem like a borderline personality disorder or psychopathy, in which case he wouldn't feel that guilty over doing it, like she made me do it, and then he just goes on with his life. Why shouldn't he, He has needs. No. Yes, Veronica, you did catch this one live, but next week lives will be through Patreon. So this is my last public live, but the videos will still be here. It's just I'm going to do the live through Patreon. And that link is below. Let's see. Oh, that's really sad. That's really sad, Shelley. Yeah. My father killed myself. It destroys the family. It's so much worse than you can even imagine. It just is, and it just is. That's all I can say. And that's why it's really is murder in a sense, because you've murdered. It's a murder of yourself, and then everybody else suffers for it too. That's the one I was talking about, Steve. The link is below for Guy DeAndrea. Yeah, that's the one I have linked below that I said, this is the prosecutor guy. And I was really happy because a lot of times when I listen to detectives or prosecutors or profilers or regular folk, I'm like, I don't really like what you're saying, and I'm not going to recommend you. I mean, maybe you say a few good things, and then I'm like, on something else. I liked what he said. I liked his whole thing on this case. So I have it linked below because I think it's definitely a watch. Please go there. Very much worthwhile. This is way better for us too. Never dreamed I'd actually be able to communicate with Pat Brown. Well, I don't really hide. I'm kind of like, as I say, regular people. I'm regular people. So just me. And I'm glad you're you, and I'm glad you're here. So let's see. Well, we got so many comments here. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm moving down toward the bottom here. That's a good point. Yeah, you're right, Pat. Things can be better after a sleep. To spare 1 minute, think about your loved ones and how they'd be sad and miss you. Yeah, for me, I always look back and I say to myself, things have changed so dramatically. From 1 year to the next, that 1 year to the next. I mean, I've had, everybody's had those moments where things are really bad, and you think, oh my God. I had a tubal pregnancy once after my second child, and ended up in surgery, and then couldn't have any more kids. They told me I was probably not going to ever have any more children. And people could say, well, you had 2, so you don't need more. And I remember feeling really sad, that I lost this opportunity to have more kids. And I was 26, 27. And I had kind of envisioned having more. And then about 4 years later, I adopted my son. And I ended up with 3 children. So I adopted him at the age of 5. And, and what an opportunity I had, and I love my son. And I'm like, wow, who would have thought, that this bad thing that happened to me ended up with my son. It's weird. It's like, it's not like you want the bad things to happen, but it doesn't mean that because bad things happen, good things will never come later. And that's always my point. I'm not doing TV anymore. I quit because of the agendas on TV and didn't like what was going on, and so I stopped. And gave up a very lifelong career of TV, and I've pretty much stuck to that. And, I could say, well, I'm never going to be on TV again. Well, I can do other things than be on TV. I can do YouTube, for example. But even if I didn't do YouTube, it doesn't mean I can't do other things in my life that are worthwhile, There's all kinds of things I can do. Who knows what they are, but I could always do something else. I'm a writer, and I took care of my granddaughter, and I like traveling. I ran a group for women called Oh the Women Cheap Travel. And Annie's here. So Annie's been on the trip with me. We went to Mongolia together when I ran that trip. There's always something to do. What you got to keep going and find, out what it is, and then maybe a year or two later you go, dang, I'm glad I didn't do myself in, So that's my strong feeling. You just hang in, because you never know what's around the corner. You really don't. So. Martin says, not sure I should reveal my voice. I like the air of mystique. Well, then you might not want to come to the call-in. So, or you could use like this voice thing to change with your voice. It's funny because it is a very different way. When we do things through chat, we have a whole different persona in a sense than when we do things through speaking. So you're not required to come to the chats. This is the twice a month call-in that I want to do is for people who would like to have that opportunity, just to be able to say, hey, how you doing? And I wanted to ask you this question, and just different format for people who'd like a different format. So if you want to stay mysterious, Martin, you can stay mysterious. Oh my God. Oh, that's awesome. Yay, Lenny. Join Patreon. Yay. Then we'll see you around a lot. So again, if you can't join Patreon for whatever reasons, it doesn't mean I can't talk to you in the comment section below. I will always do that as much as I can. It's just if you're on Patreon, I'll have much more interaction with you, and you'll have much more interaction with the other Patreon people who really want to learn. And he says, best time in the world. Yeah, so we had a great time in Mongolia. So it was the best trip ever. It was so much fun. I mean, yeah, that was cool. And it was 5 great women, and it was just lots of fun. So, and this is what I really want to hear from people. I just want to learn. This is so amazing. That is what I want this channel for learning, and not just some channels I see where they come and they just want to, oh, I think he did it, and they just want to, a whole bunch of gossip and nonsense going on. I'm not saying you can't do it, but I want this to be a learning channel, and so, yeah, I want to keep it that way. And I'm never going to have 1 million people here, believe me. I'm never going to make $1 million and have 1 million subscribers. It's not going to happen, because it is a learning channel, and that's okay with me. I don't have to have that. I just want to have enough stability and enough a good group and enough support that the channel can keep going. So, oh, that's interesting. What the heck? Paused. You can see me? This is the weirdest. I have nothing on my screen. Oh, what in the world? This is so bizarre. Another weird thing's happening. Look, pencil. I have a black screen. It went black. Now, why would my screen go completely black and I can't see myself? It doesn't show me as being part of the. It doesn't show me as even being part of the stream anymore. Now I see that it says I'm live, but I can't see myself at all. That is a new one. Oh, there's always something. I swear to God. And what's also funny is that it says here I have a part of a live stream, but I also can't. It doesn't show how I can stop. Oh, that's come back. The end broadcast is returned, but I'm still missing. Well, that is certainly unique. Okay, then. Well, I guess it's telling me that I should quit now. How bizarre. See, there's something I wonder what's doing that. That is really weird. Yeah, I can't see myself at all. It looks like I'm not even here. None of my stuff is working. So I can't even comment because now that's not working. So if you still see me, how awesome is that? So I'm going to say good night. It's been a great, great show. So this has been really fun. And I'm going to sign out. And at least I found the end broadcast sign. So I can do that. But very weird. Oh my goodness. They just got to mess with me one way or the other. So if you can see me, I'm going to wave goodbye. And I will see you if you're on Patreon at Tier 3, 4, or 5, yes. I'll send you the link for next Sunday. And if you're 7 tier, I join the Hangouts. And hopefully by this Saturday, I will have the call-in thing figured out. And I'll send you a link for that. So I'll enjoy seeing all of you there. So bye.